welcome one and all to episode 34 of the Lookout Sir 40k podcast. I've broadly assumed it's episode 34. I don't entirely know, actually, when I'm making this statement. Hopefully Joe will correct me. What episode is it, Joe?
I don't know. I trust you to do this stuff.
Brilliant. Well, from here on out, it's episode 34. So, welcome one and all to the 34th episode of the Lookout Sir...
What if it's 33? Does that mean the next one has to be 34 again? Or it becomes 35 and we've skipped one?
Yeah, maybe we can sort of have a weird kind of unnecessarily pointless in-joke about how the numbers went wrong at the point that I asserted that it was 33 when in fact it wasn't. That would be a hilarious tale for people to talk about.
It is in fact 34.
I was pretty confident of that when I made that statement, given that I'm the, custodian of all the back catalogue of everything that is the Lookout Sir 40k podcast. But nonetheless, look, this is the 34th episode of the Lookout Sir 40k podcast, a Warhammer 40,000 podcast made, developed, produced by a cohort of beautiful people who collectively go by the title of Lookout Sir. That being myself, Dan. Hello, that's me. And joined as ever by Philip. How's it going, Phil?
I'm cold, but otherwise I'm good.
This is how... So, today, November 20th, it's my birthday. We're spending my birthday doing a podcast together. Aren't we cool?
Yay! Happy birthday!
Yay! Birthday podcast fun! Woo! I'm looking forward to editing this for the couple hours that remain. Whee! We didn't have to do this on your birthday, did we, Joe?
That was a whole year ago. I don't know, actually. My birthday wasn't a Tuesday last year, and we don't record on Tuesday, so it's fine.
That's true. But will it be meaning it might be a Wednesday this year?
I don't know.
There you go. Recording inbound. It's going to be back-to-back birthday fun.
Oh, it's going to be on a Wednesday.
Oh, woe is me. Anyway, look, that all being said, how you doing, Joe? You all right?
I'm all good. I've started deciding that I actually hate playtesting my army for the GT, because the problem is I build and I paint loads of models for my army, and then I playtest it and decide I don't like something or I want to add something in, and then find myself having to build and paint more models for that army.
Was it better when you just had blind ignorance going in headlong?
Yeah, I remember the good old days when I'd write my army like 6 months in advance or 3 months in advance, and either already have the models painted or just paint the models I needed and just kind of get on my hands for a while. But no, I actually want to achieve something this time. So I'm now sat here painting 6 Intercessor Sergeants with Thunder Hammers.
You're so try-hard, Joe. Have you got the tarantula guns yet? Are you going to be using them?
Well, I've play-tested the tarantula guns, and they're all right. But I have discovered that for the exact same pointage, I can take a attack bike with a heavy bolter for 37 points.
That's very true.
Which is super cheap. And it's a lot more versatile, can drive around, grab objectives, and just be generally great. Because the problem about the tarantulas is they shoot the nearest visible infantry unit. So the problem is if there's no infantry about, they just don't do anything. So whereas with a heavy bolter bike, it can drive around. Admittedly, it's hitting on 4s, which is the same as the tarantula. It can hit everyone.
It's true. It is true. And also, it's still got the 2 regular bolters as well. So that's technically 1 extra bolter shot, albeit not as powerful as the heavy bolters.
But it's 4 extra shots, isn't it?
Well, no, because the tarantula's got 2 heavy bolters in it.
Oh, that's true.
That's the difference maker. That's
right.
But
they're good. So I'm now kind of like annoyed with myself because I've had the idea, which means I now have to go out, get these bikes, build them, and paint them as well.
Well, good news for you, Joe. I so happen to have a bunch of Conquest attack bikes, so...
Really?
Yeah, man. Just, always check in with your boy. He's got the greasy goods, so, just let me know if you need free attack bikes.
I do. That's good. You're like TJ from Recess with your big duffel coat.
That's true. That's true. Although that wasn't TJ from Recess. TJ was the kid with the red baseball cap. You're talking about the kid with the big coat that sold stuff.
Yeah, it was TJ. It was like
no, but look, Phil's going to cut us off any second now. Let's not end up in this conversation. That was a different character. I'll explain it to you later. Don't you worry. It's been an exciting time in Warhammer 40,000 these last couple of weeks because we've got Sisters of Battle coming out today. We've got a brand new Psychic Awakening thing happening today. They released new Inquisition rules, which is all super exciting. They also unveiled a new model for Mephiston today. I mean, that was pretty amazing. What did you think of the new Mephiston, Phil?
Yeah, it looked all right.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
How about you?
Pretty good.
Your emotions are running wild today, Phil.
I know, right? He is loving it in his skill check.
It's cool if you're a Blood Angel player. It's great. If you're not a Blood Angel player, you go, ooh. I mean, I really like the artist that the original that model was based on. So that is kind of cool. It sort of, to me, doesn't look Primaris-y enough, even though it is with the right armor. But he's got a lot of stuff to make him look like the old model. So it doesn't quite fit with the current range, in my opinion. Yeah, that's why my answer is, yeah, it's all right.
He's properly metal, though, isn't he? Properly metal. He looks like he could be the front man for a 70s metal band, for sure.
Would you be happier, Phil, if we gave him a gas mask and a shovel?
Well, no, because then he wouldn't be Mephiston. Yes, smart ass.
Exactly. He'd be the Lord of the Death Corps of Krieg, bringing his shovelly, gas masky fun to the world. But look, the point I was going to get at is it's been really, really exciting, but probably the most incredible release of everything is they've only gone and given us rules for the Red Gobbo. The Christmas Goblin has his own rules, everybody. Have you seen these, boys? Have you read the rules for the Red Gobbo yet?
I have indeed.
You have?
But what they also tease is they basically, in that article, announce that the Warhammer Legends is coming to Chapter Approved 2019. Boo, 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 boo.
Ooh, baby.
So, yeah, which is interesting because they kind of just tuck it in there and probably most people didn't realise.
No, because they were so blown over by the Red Gobbo's rules. I mean, Joe, having not read the Red Gobbo's rules, what would you imagine his movement might be?
So he's for 40k?
It's a Warhammer 40,000 Red Gobbo, yeah.
Okay, so I'd assume his movement would be like 5?
Way, he knows his rules. Weapon skill?
4+, because he's a goblin.
I swear, Joe must be cheating. Ballistic skill?
Oh no, that weapons. I would have guessed his weapons could be 5 because.
Well, no, you were right, Joe. You were right. It's 4+. But
yeah.
What's his ballistic skill?
Is it 4+?
No, it's 3+.
Oh my god!
I know this Gobbo, mate. He knows what's up. Do you want to hear some of his rules?
Go on then.
Has you been a good little grot this year? At the end of your movement phase, you can select one other Gretchen unit within 3 of this model. If you do, roll a d6. Sorry, I couldn't say please then. On a 1, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. On a 2+, models in that unit count as being equipped with stick bombs until the end of the battle. It's alright, isn't it?
That's amazing.
I do love him. He's brilliant. He's 30 points. He's got 3 wounds. He's got ballistic skill of 3+, which makes him the most accurate orc model in the world.
What gun is he? What gun has he got?
He has got the custom Grot Blaster, which is range 12, pistol D3, strength 5, AP1, 2 damage.
Jesus Christ.
Right. So this dude can run up to Primaris Marines and blap them away. He's also got he's got Icon of the Revolution, which is a melee weapon with -1 AP, 1 damage. When resolving an attack made with this weapon, a wound roll of 6 inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target in addition to any other damage.
That's brilliant.
And on the topic of the revolution, friendly Gretchen units can use this model's leadership instead of their own whilst they are within 6, and he's leadership 6, which by Gretchen standard, this is the bravest Gretchen since Gretchen's began.
Oh my god. And like the stick bomb thing, that's every turn you can do that.
At the end of the movement phase, you can just go, here, Gretchens, have some stick bombs. Unless, of course, you roll a 1, and then they get, mortal wounded.
Oh. Well, he's brilliant.
He's great.
If I was an alt player, he'd be an auto include.
He would be. Although, again, because he's a Warhammer Legacy, or what's that rule set called now, Phil? You said
Legends.
Legends.
Warhammer Legends.
So his rules are legend rules, so you would not be allowed to include him in a battle-forged Warhammer 40,000 army, unfortunately.
Well, no, you can. It just means they're never updating the points costs for him.
Oh, is that what they mean by legends?
Yeah, so legends means they're giving him rules and points, but they're not touching the points ever again to be balanced. So therefore, they recommend for tournament organisers that you don't allow legends units. But obviously, there could be tournament organisers that will be like, yeah, throw them in. Yeah. That'd be fun. But I imagine that won't be the case. I think most will just take them out.
Fair enough.
So yeah, you can create an army with him and play with him in regular 40k. That should be perfectly legit.
Fair enough. You just can't necessarily use it at tournaments.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good, though. So there you go. The Red Gobbo. Pick up yours from your local Games Workshop retailer for the cheap price of whatever they sell him for. I've not bought one yet. But reading them rules, maybe. I definitely won't bother. I've still got the Noise Marine in his sealed packaging from last year.
That and you don't have an Orc army.
Well, that's also true. But there you go. So, on the topic of things, let's talk about the things that will be our topics. We today are going to kick off by talking about the upcoming release of the hotly anticipated and quite widely sold out everywhere Sisters of Battle. So for those of you who were not able to get your Sisters of Battle via the Games Workshop or any other third-party websites, you are no longer able to do so because it's sold out everywhere. I imagine they'll be getting stock in store, though, right? I mean, what would you reckon, Joe? You're our retail man. Will they have stock in shops on Saturday?
I imagine, it's a difficult... I imagine the Games Workshop stores will probably have, 1 or 2 at most. But because they've just sold out of so many, everywhere... I imagine what they probably would have done is just pulled them all from the shops and then given them to web sales.
Quite possible.
Well, if you read on the website, that's not what it says. There's an article about it on the Warhammer community website, and they basically say, your only chance to get them is basically to go to a shop and hope that they've got one in stock. So it seems like all the stuff that's being dispatched to stores, which, as Joe said, will be 1 or 2 copies, will be being sent to them. Indeed. I imagine most independent ones would have probably either pre-sold it anyway.
Yeah, I would imagine so. But if you're listening to us, you've probably already missed out on the chance to go and buy one of these the day of launch. But if by whatever random set of circumstances you happen to be listening to us at around... 9 o'clock the morning of Saturday the 23rd, given that this show goes out around 8 o'clock UK time, then, you've still got an hour now to go abandon us and head into town and try your luck. Good luck to those of you who do.
It's a 2-week pre-order, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So you got a whole week.
Oh, you still got a whole week, so you can prepare. Oh, well, there you go. I was telling false truths.
You can go pitch your tent outside the store, and get a week's worth of painting in your tent, ready 10 o'clock, and then catfight all the other guys who will be camping next to you.
Indeed. I don't imagine it will be like that Pokemon Centre that opened in London for the promotional launch of Pokemon Sword and Shield. That place was mad. Westfields in London had queues for about 20 hours or something crazy just to go in and buy a plush Pikachu. Mental.
I wanted to go, but then I realised the idea of I didn't want to spend 6 hours stood in English winter time, rain, and just this. Yeah.
That quickly lost momentum. Anyway, right, okay, so we're going to talk about the Sisters, and then we're going to talk about the Inquisition rules, because we felt like Sisters, Inquisition, the two somewhat, synergize into one collaborative topic. So, yeah, today it's going to be all about the most holy and, devout members of the Imperium going out into the world of the 41st millennium and doing what they do best, which is purging heretics. So that will be the theme for today's episode, the purging of heretics. So thank you very much for joining us for episode 34 of the Lookout Thank you very much for joining us for episode 34 of the Lookout Serve 40k podcast. Please like and subscribe, tell your friends, and maybe consider following Joe on Instagram. He does competitions now because he's desperate for your love. Isn't that right, Joe?
Yes. Well, it's more of a case of like, I'm super happy I've got 500 followers. I will try and gather some more by giving away freebies. Do you know what happened?
How much did your freebie giveaway grant you in terms of extra followers?
I would say shameful, but I'm very proud of all my followers.
Of course.
A whole 16 people gathered to my circle, but it went to one of my already follower people. I'm quite happy about that. So it's more of like a thank you for turning on your phone first thing in the morning or when you go to the toilet and look at pictures of my models.
Exactly. And just think about it, Joe. If 16 people turned up to your house tomorrow, you'd feel pretty popular, wouldn't you?
I would, but then I wouldn't be able to feed them.
That's true. And you'd be concerned that they were all secret bailiffs.
Yeah, I would probably just close my curtains and hide behind my sofa.
There you go. So on the topic of that, shall we get on with the show? I think we should. Let's go on. Transitional noise. Woo! Hello, everybody. You can't see, but I'm wearing a hood. And I'm doing this because I'm trying to be all moody and broody and somewhat kind of in keeping with the religious themes that is the Sisters of Battle, the Adeptus Sororitas, the lovely new thing that the good people of Games Workshop and or Warhammer 40,000 will be bringing to our beautiful shores in not too much time at all. In fact, if you're listening to this the day it comes out, by all accounts, Sisters of Battle are somewhat available now. Are they not, Joe?
When's this going out? Is it this weekend?
Yeah, this weekend.
This weekend.
That means nothing, assuming that anyone's listening. It's going out on the 23rd, Saturday the 23rd of November, 2019.
So, they are available to people who actually managed to pre-order them in a week's time. That's about it, really.
There you go.
The weird rush to get to them crashed the internet, and some people got them, and some people didn't.
It was something of a manic rush, I imagine. I mean, Phil, did you manage to get your hands on these? Did you even want them?
I kind of somewhat considered it, and I was like, I'll think about it. And then at some point I looked at my watch, and it was 10 past 10, and I was like, they've already gone now.
Yep.
So no, I didn't make an active effort. I mean, part of me would really love to have them. The other part of me says I have a mountain of boxes of Games Workshop stuff that I need to get through. So I put my sensible hat on and decided not to buy it.
That's fair enough. I did not put my sensible hat on. I put my shiny hat on. And despite having previously stated I had no interest in them, and I still may have no interest in them, I'd just rather own it and then, potentially sell it on to someone who actually wants it more than I do, should I decide that I don't actually want it in the first place. Which is possibly not the best attitude, and maybe some of you out there are going, for God's sakes, Dan, I really wanted one. Why did you take one if you're not really that bothered? Well, I don't know yet. I haven't read the rules, haven't seen the the models up close, but I'd hate to miss out on the opportunity. They filled me with the FOMO, the fear. I didn't want to, be missed or, miss the opportunity to potentially own something that may or may not be something I actually regret not buying in the future. So, I gave myself the option, and I'm excited for the Sisters of Battle because I think, obviously, I'm excited for them because effectively, although not actually, this is something new in Warhammer 40,000. Now, I know, obviously, the Sisters of Battle have been around for a considerably long time, but, I mean, Joe, when's the last time you ever played against someone running Sisters of Battle?
Mid 7th edition. I think me and Phil did a doubles event a long time ago, and there was a guy running Space Wolves and a guy running Sisters.
And did you look at him all confused? Like, oh my god, I found a unicorn.
It was very nice. I've seen them about, like, not just like milling about, but everyone's like, "Oh, Sisters army over there," and you go and have a look. And you're like, "Oh, it's Sisters." And then, but I've never actually played against one, like properly in 8th edition, so I'm not sure what they do. I dabbled with Celestine back in her Index days when she was really broken. Because
isn't everyone though?
Yeah, because I was like, I want a cool unit that can move 48 inches a turn and murder entire units on her own. So I was like, yep, sounds like the girl for me.
Yep, she's pretty good like that.
Yeah, but I never actually got any other models because you didn't really need them. And at the moment with I'm a bit Sisters nonchalant because I was just like, those are really nice models, but I haven't read the rules and I'm poor. So I was like, maybe when they come out and I've read the rules, I might get like a patrol kind of thing. Start small, work my way up. I'm too busy looking at Black Templars at the moment.
Oh, really? You think Black Templars will be the thing?
Well, they're quite. The thing is, they're actually quite fluffy for my army.
Okay.
You trying to steal my secondary Space Marine option?
Well, the thing is, though, they're bros, aren't they? They're bros in the books. The old Celestial Lions and the Black Templars.
That is true.
And I thought, looking at history, I'll get an army painted a lot faster than you will.
Well, that is entirely true.
Yeah,
100% true.
Yeah.
It's more likely that he will have bought, sold, and painted the army before you've even finished assembling it.
No, that is. Yep, I can't deny
bought,
that.
painted, and then sold. I don't know if I did that in the wrong order when I said it. Point is, he will have already moved on. 4 months. Joe works in 4-month cycles with armies. So there you go.
My lions are holding in strong, but the Dark Elder are getting the eye.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
They're losing favour. So in the topic of favour, not that really this segue actually works, but they're kind of the favoured, children of the Emperor, aren't they, the Sisters of Battle? Because, where the Space Marines are the sons of the Emperor, who ultimately don't really buy into the whole the Emperor is a god spiel, the Sisters of Battle are well into the idea that the Emperor is a god entirely. So effectively the deal is with these girls is that they are all religious zealots that are out there, performing acts of faith and working in the best interests of the good people of the Imperium. I mean, that's the broad synopsis of what the Sisters of Battle is, right? For those of you listening to this who don't already know what they are. Have I missed anything?
They're basically, they were created because there was a heretical priest who just went a little bit mad, and he was like, I'm going to burn everything. And he used his little private army to do it. So the Imperium decreed that no man she'll fight under the control of the church. So the church were like, oh, put my glasses on, pocket protector on. I think you'll find you said man there, not lady or woman. So they just had a massive army of women instead.
There you go. And they've been burning stuff ever since.
Yeah, living the dream.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we've had the good fortune of having a few rules and things out there in the wild, but I think, let's just quickly talk about this as a range, because GW have done a really good job of teasing the Sisters range, and over the course of the year, with the bulletin updates that they've been doing on the Sisters, we've seen lots and lots of new exciting stuff, and despite even having seen lots of new and exciting stuff across the span of the last 12 months, they've seemed to have been able to impress us even still further by putting out new, beautiful, painted miniatures that we're now starting to see for the first time. So I won't necessarily get into the range as a whole, but I was wondering if you guys would give your opinion on the range as a whole, your thoughts and feelings about it, the synergies throughout it, and maybe just call out one or a couple miniatures that you've seen within the range that you think look really cool or look a bit naff, and why you're kind of thinking that way, I suppose. I mean, Phil, you're usually our resident, painty model man. What do you reckon of the range?
Yeah, it's pretty solid, I would say. It's going to be by far the most gorgeous painted army once you've got it built and painted up. It's not going to be an easy army to paint, I don't think. It's not like Space Marines where you spray them one colour and do a wash and you're 90% there. There's so much detail on them. I think it's going to be quite a lot of work and a bit tricky to paint, so definitely not for a beginner. But they're really solid. Like everything pretty much is a real hit in terms of how it's been designed. And I say this, when I first saw the original 3D renders, I wasn't too keen on them. Because seeing a 3D render is a bit hard to... It looks very different from a finished painting model, basically. So those original designs, they came out, I was a bit on the fence with it. But as soon as they put down a plastic model and a painted one, I was like, oh, I could get behind these. So yeah, pretty standout. I know a lot of people are a bit funny about the vehicles because they've got some odd little bits of detail, or they may be a bit overly detailed with stuff and gubbins that makes them look a bit too ornate, but I think that perfectly fits in with their vibe and what they're meant to be doing. So far I think we've only seen two of the vehicles, the Immolator, which is the flamey one, and the Exorcist, which has the shooty organs.
Surely they're all flamey ones in some way or another, right? That one's just got especially large flamers, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because it's almost like the Predator to a Rhino. So, because there's a generic Rhino that they've got, which we've seen at the very beginning ages ago, and then the Immolator has two giant flamers standing on top of it. And also, if you want to go around collecting your cherubs, this is the army for you, because we haven't really seen much in the way of cherubs much in 40k. They've tended to be favouring servo skulls, so it's nice to see the cherubs are back. If anyone doesn't want the cherubs, because I've seen people say they don't want them, I'll be like, send them my way, and I'll stick them on all my Inquisition bits.
What do you think of the doves, though, Phil? They've got a few doves to go with those cherubs, haven't they?
Oh yeah, no, it's brilliant. I like it all.
Yeah.
I mean, the vehicles are bonkers, but in a way that's fantastic at the same time.
So would you say the vehicles are your standout thing, or would you say that they're probably more towards the oddity side of things?
Yeah, I would say the vehicles so far are probably the weakest in comparison to the infantry. Obviously, the exception to that is the Penitent engine, which I really like the look of. They also previewed the Mortifier, which is a new shooty version, and it kind of looks like it's just got a heavy bolter in each arm, which in terms of shooty output isn't all that much, so it'd be interesting if it gets some extra rules to make that a bit better.
I mean,
I imagine it'll get to shoot twice, because the standard engine will probably get to attack twice, because that's always been a rule that it's had.
Yeah, that would be quite good, because then 4 heavy bolter shots would be pretty decent for a lightweight thing running around. Yeah, looks wise they're fantastic, and I think the mortifier looks slightly better in terms of how the entombed person is. It kind of looks like there's loads of voltage stuff and kind of in a big chest plate as well, which sort of looks maybe a bit better than the original Penta engine.
Yeah, they're a lot more kind of strapped down in this one, aren't they?
Look a bit more armoured. It's the constant issue with all the walkers where you want to see the person inside, but then you could just easily shoot that person inside.
Force
because they're not
fields,
protected.
Phil. Force fields.
Or maybe, or the power of faith. Who knows?
Exactly. The Emperor protects.
But the other vehicle that I'm going to hazard a guess is a vehicle. Let's see if I can find the name of it. I currently cannot. It is.
You mean the floating plinth with wings?
Junip Eureka, I want to say.
Let's go with that.
Yeah, so she's the lady that's giving a sermon, standing atop a double-eagled podium, giving a sermon that's floating around, and it's got like these huge heavy flamers at the bottom. It looks mad good, and it's definitely the most exciting thing they've probably done because it's totally different.
Did you not think though it needed walker legs? Do you not want to see some chicken feet under that?
I mean, I've seen the conversion floating around the internet, but I don't think it's needed. I mean, that in itself would be cool.
There's a really nice conversion where they've given it the Onaga Dune Crawler legs, which looks quite nice.
I was going to say, I would have thought the Onaga Dune Crawler would have been a better option than the Knight Armiger one that has been doing the rounds.
Yeah, because that looks like it'd be very uneven. Like it'd topple over quite easily.
So what do you reckon of all this nonsense, Joe? You into it?
I think that the models themselves are stunning. Some of them are really, really beautiful, but they don't do much for me. Kind of like my feelings towards the Boner men that were about. But
you mean the Bone Reapers from Age of Sigmar?
That's the one.
Not the Boner men. I mean, that's a whole different problem.
But that's what they are. That's
okay,
what they
fine.
should be. Okay, so my favourite model is the new Imagifier.
Imagifier?
The one with the standard bearer lady with the big futuristic stone banner thing.
But Joe, that's all made out of marble. That's too heavy for her to carry.
It's made from space marble. It's a bit lighter.
Yeah.
So I imagine that like all the marble in the galaxy can't all have come from Earth. There's a finite amount of marble.
That is true.
And 40,000 years in the future, I don't think there's going to be much left. So I like to imagine it's like faux marble that you get from IKEA.
I'm with you. I thought you said foam marble there for a minute, but yes,
it could be foam marble.
Yeah.
So it's foam on the inside, and then they've got like a hard plastic cover on the outside. It's probably proof, and it's just made to look like marble, and that's why it's super duper light. You see.
I mean, if there is one thing I will say, I demand the utmost realism in my tabletop skirmishing, sci-fi, army of religious zealots powered by a corpse emperor.
By faith.
Yeah, it's I want realism in this. That's a bridge too far for me, Joe.
I'm a big fan of that model. It's cool, and I actually really like just the basic sisters. They look solid, Like all their poses they're very dynamic. There's a lot of movement in it, but they look like they could kick some butts. They showed off in one of the Warhammer community posts. There's a sister with a flamer, and they painted her red, and it just looks amazing. it's a really nice paint job, or just a really cool model.
I really like the one that's next to her on the website, where the visor's up, so you can see her face underneath.
Like half up, which is really cool because they've kind of got the old Christian Templar mask helmet things going, which I really like. And I think if I was going to do a Sisters army, I'd probably try and stick to just the core Sister Rage.
What's your opinion on the Sister of Battle pulling the grenade pin out with her teeth?
She's awesome. She's awesome. Because I was in the opposing camp when the Sisters got released. Originally they showed off the artwork, and loads of people complained that the Sisters' heads weren't feminine enough. These beautiful warrior women that go around killing people but looking good whilst they do it. But I don't know if anyone's met an English female squaddy. That's not what warrior women look like.
I mean, in some cases, we can't really generalise, can we? But
there's probably a few lookers out there, but there is majoritively they don't really care about their looks, because when you're being shot at, putting on makeup is not number one priority, nor is being weak, because these girls, they're going to have to lift, aren't they?
That's true.
When they're not burning people, they're just power lifting, because those bolters aren't exactly light.
No.
So. Yeah.
If you look at the original Canoness that they did I think it came out of Finecast, the one that's based on the old John Blanche illustration.
Oh yeah.
So she's very much got kind of stilettos kind of aesthetic going on, and you can see that they've toned that down. So now they're walking around with no high heels whatsoever. So they've definitely made them a lot more practical. I don't know if the original Sisters were in high heels or not?
No,
space
they weren't.
High heels.
They were militant, and they should be. They were form functioning. That with the John Blanche one, it kind of followed this kind of 80s GW rocker kind of thing, where all the artwork for all the 80s metal bands were just women in bikinis fighting bears kind of stuff, but that's not how they do it. They're still doing Skyrim and stuff, but not in the future.
There you go. There's so much to unpack from everything you just said there, Joe. But nonetheless, I appreciate your input and your insight as always.
I will make an audio recording of my therapy sessions.
Please. I feel like this is what these are.
Yeah.
I mean, for my side of things, the range is gorgeous. This is probably the most Age of Sigmar range in all of Warhammer 40,000. The inclusion of these really mad, over-the-top spiritual icons combined with the, form and function of the actual Battle Sisters, the insane, over-the-top, engines of war, as it were, which really, really show what GW can do when they put their mind to it with an existing Rhino chassis. Fair enough, it's probably unlikely that most of these Sisters tanks are actually going to be based off of the actual Rhino sprue that we've had for as long as we have. But if they did, then that's pretty incredible to see how much, flexibility they have with those existing older plastic kits, because it all looks really, really good. I think, for me, I couldn't necessarily pick one standout thing. I think just the range as a whole is very, very strong up to this point. And I think it will be a delight for anyone planning to collect and paint this army to do so. I think what's going to be really interesting, as Phil said from the outset, is seeing what these girls look like when they are being painted under duress, shall we say. Because if these guys end up being really, really good, then there's every chance that we'll start to see a lot of very badly painted versions of this, which feels like a little bit of an unfortunate scenario, but as is often the case in these...
It feels like that'll become a bit of an injustice, really, because if they are amazing and they're like and they're meta busting and like all this current Space Marine players jump ship to sisters, what you don't want to see is that these beautiful models literally spray painted one colour and then like some skin tone on there and then a silver gun and then a terrible base job, because it kind of spits in the face of the kind of like the hard work that's gone on for these models over the last few years.
But we shall wait and see. So on the topic of their tournament or competitive opportunities, let's talk about the rules that have, gone out into the world of the internet via the good people of Games Workshop. None of us have the book in our hands at this moment in time, so we're just going to have to read the things on the internet and give our opinions. So, from the outset, one of the major things about the Sisters is the Axe of Faith. Now, those of you who've been playing the beta version of the Sisters will be somewhat familiar with the Axe of Faith. I mean, Joe, you did quite a lot of work with Saint Celestine back in the day. You can somewhat recount how they used to work, right?
So when I was playing it with Celestine, it was literally a case of you could do one Act of Faith per turn.
Yep.
And you basically rolled a dice, and on a 2+ you did it. And your options were move twice, shoot twice, or combat twice, basically. Or move as if it's the moving phase, shoot as if it's the shooting phase, or attack as if it's the attack phase before the turn begins. So obviously everyone just took Celestine. So before the movement phase, you just blitzed her 12 inches up the board. And then you did it again in her movement phase, and then charged, and it was great.
Good time.
But then they changed it to basically like you got to, I think it was like re-rolls where you got a plus to hit, and then you only got 3 inches, like additional 3 inches to your movement.
So in the new version, what they did is you gain Act of Faith points for each. I think it's for each unit. You get 3 by default, I think, and then you get 1 extra for each squad that has like 10 men in it or something. Or for every 10 models, you get an extra point. And then each Act of Faith that you want to do, you've got to spend 1 point to do, and then you've got to roll over a certain value. So the most interesting one, which is to attack twice in the fight phase, costs you've got to roll over a 5. So the chances of it happening is like 1 in 3, so it's quite slim. Obviously, you can I think it's not move again, but it's an extra 3 inches. And then another one is you can gain a lost model, or I think it's D3 mortal wounds or D3 wounds onto a model. Those go off on like 3s or 4s, so they're a bit easier to do. But it's the fact that you've got to spend a point, even if it doesn't go off, and then there's such a slim chance of the good ones going off. It wasn't very good.
But there are ways of getting these points, though, and I am more than certain that there will be ways of modifying those dice rolls.
Sorry. So this was the
old mechanic. So you've gone off on a tangent. I was going to say the new mechanic that is shelve all that nonsense, move over points and things. Have you heard of a game called Silver Tower, or any of the Warhammer Quest systems, to be fair, because they all incorporate this sort of miracle dice system, don't they, in all of the Warhammer Quest games of the modern era? Am I not right?
Yep.
So now you have the miracle dice system. So you gain 1 miracle dice at the beginning of each battle round, and you gain 1 at the end of a phase if 1 or more of the following conditions are met 1 or more times during that phase. Vengeance. A unit from your army with the Axe of Faith ability destroys an enemy unit. So there's potentially another one that you're going to get in a turn. Sacrifice. A character unit from your army with Axe of Faith ability is destroyed. That's hopefully something you'll never get an active a miracle dice for, but maybe you will. Things happen. Purity. A psychic power is resisted by a unit from your army with the Acts of Faith ability, without performing an Act of Faith to do so. Ooh, so no Acts of Faith to get more Acts of Faith. It's like the genie. No wishing for more wishes.
And with their denying, it's basically each squad can deny one psychic power a turn, but you only have one dice to do it on. So you're only going to be doing it on the low number psychic powers. But it does mean that you only ever get the chance to deny smite once a turn, because you still have to roll over.
Yep.
So the first smite is cast on a 5, which means you have to roll a 6, which means that it will very, 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 very rarely happen. But when it does, it'll be hilarious, and it'll probably be like at the most clutch moment, where he's like, "I'm gonna kill that last sister." And he's like, "Boop, no, you don't. She denies you."
Indeed. Well, also in addition, there's also the Valor Miracle Dice stipulation. You roll an unmodified 1 for a morale test taken for a unit with the Acts of Faith ability without performing an Act of Faith to do it. Now, these Miracle Dice, once you earn a Miracle Dice, you will roll the dice, and the result of said dice is what you will essentially keep to the side and use when required. So each time you earn a Miracle Dice, you roll it and add it to your pool. The pool referring to a space in or around the table which you keep all of these dice in, while retaining its score. And that's obviously very important. Don't, fiddle the dice or do anything silly. You've got to retain that score and know what numbers you got to play with. You can then expend these dice in place of certain rolls. Hits, wound rolls, saving throws, and more later in the battle to ensure you get exact results you need when you need it. How about that for your own divine intervention? So as a core mechanic, that's pretty incredible. And, obviously, without getting into it more and more and more, there's going to be various variables that will increase the amount of faith dice, miracle dice, that you can accrue throughout the game. What do you think about that? Because to me, knowing that I've got a few 6s in the bank, should I need to, make that all-important invuln save or, nullify that specific psychic power, I mean, that's a pretty strong place to start from, right?
That's mega powerful, especially if you think that it's an entire army that relies heavily on 6-up invulns, flamers, and melter weapons. So if you hit that let's just say, I don't know, repulsor that's only got 4 wounds left, and you go, I've got a spare 4 here. Boop, it's dead.
Yep.
Done.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It's so good. Or Celestine's down on 1 wound, and you need to make your 4-up invuln. You go, I've got a 5 here. I'll just get that done. Haven't got a 4, but off it goes. So good, and it means like if you're running big squads of sisters, and I need to roll a 1 here to pass my leadership test. Well, I've got one of those. I'll just chuck one of those in.
What do you reckon of that, Phil? Are you excited about the prospect of what that represents?
Yeah, I think it's a really cool, quite clever mechanic that could be. I mean, it is dice dependent. So if you're rolling badly for those miracle dice, it's not going to help you all that much unless you suddenly need to make a load of leadership tests. My only concern with it is it's a bit of a faff to. You're going to have to basically have a separate little box or tray to keep your dice in, and making sure that no one knocks that over so you don't lose the results. If you're collecting loads and not spending any, so say you've got 5 or 6 dice, I wouldn't be able to remember what I rolled a couple of turns ago. So making sure that they don't get knocked over, or, you just need something to keep track of it, basically. So that's my only concern, is it seems like a bit of a faffy thing to do, like I've got to put these to one side. But other than that, like the actual mechanic of it, I think is really fantastic. It's a bit ingenious. I think it is clearly ported over from Silver Tower, but I mean, it's such a great idea. Why not?
if you ran, I think it was Kairos Fate Weaver in Age of Sigmar. I think you had you could roll. I think it was like 9 dice at the start of the game, and you could keep those dice to one side and then throw those in to replace dice during the game, which is really good. And because lots of people used it to get the double turn every turn, basically.
Oh yeah, good. You could use it for the roll off, could you?
Yeah, for the initiative roll off.
That's crazy.
Each turn was super powerful. But this I feel is better because you can get more. And yeah, so you start off with 9 and those dwindle down. So you could be quite heavy in using them in the beginning, knowing you're not going to have them turn 4 or 5. But you're always going to be getting 2 or 3 of these dice a turn.
I mean, that's pretty. Yeah, that's pretty powerful. And one of the other things that's really exciting about Sisters as well is, much like their other power armored pals, the Space Marines, these guys have their own version of doctrines to a certain extent. So they have their sacred rites. So if you have an army entirely made up of Sisters of Battle or Adeptus Ministorum units, you will be given access to the sacred rites. Ooh. The sacred rites are essentially a series of extra army-wide abilities that will amplify your force. Now, here's a fun little twist. You can either choose one or randomly determine 2. So not knowing what's available, Joe, would you choose one instinctively or randomly decide for 2?
I like if it's an important game, you're gonna choose, aren't you?
Yeah.
But if you're just playing with your buddies, you'd be like, I'll risk it because I could end up with 2 really good ones here. So,
well, let me tell you what some of the abilities are, and then maybe that will influence your thinking. So, you have, first of all, the Spirit of the Martyr. So this is essentially like what them people with banners do for the Space Marines. When something dies, you roll a d6. Now, because this is an army-wide ability, it doesn't go off on a 4+, it goes off on a 5+. And like with the Space Marine variant, you can either shoot with one of its ranged weapons, as if it were the shooting phase, or make one attack with one of its melee weapons, as if it were the fight phase. That's a pretty good army-wide ability, wouldn't you say so?
Well, that's an amazing ability. Like I said, army of melters and flamers. Just firing those off willy-nilly. It's good.
It is pretty reasonable. So, I mean, if you're expecting a tough fight and you're thinking you're going to be taking a lot of casualties, there's definitely something to be said for having a bunch of martyrs running around. But if, alternatively, you're facing a large number of aggressive enemies, you might consider the Passion. What do you imagine the Passion might do, Phil? Or do you know?
I've got no idea, actually.
Brilliant. Well, let me tell you, the Passion is exploding 6s. So when you resolve an attack with a melee weapon, specifically, because, it'd be too good to let something like that have exploding 6s on ranged weapons. I mean, what sort of nonsense codex would give exploding 6s to a ranged weapon that's widely available all over the place? Madness. Never catch on. If you roll a 6 to hit in a melee weapon, with a melee weapon, you get 1 additional hit. It's not bad, is it?
Pretty tasty.
It's not bad at all. And yet there's more, but not the entire selection of 6 here on this article, because I imagine the exploding 6s with ranged weapons is probably in there. They just don't want to quite tell us yet. So many of Sister Battle units have Shield of Faith ability, offering them invulnerable save, which is always handy, and a chance to deny the witch. They're really not fans of witches, after all. That's a fact. So you can have the Shield of Faith. Models have a 6+ invulnerable save. In addition, one unit can attempt to resist one psychic power in your opponent's psychic phase. So yes, this is an ability that allows you to deny the witch, and it's, as Joe was pointing out earlier, with 1d6 rather than 2d6, and you also get a 6+ invulnerable save, which again, an army-wide 6-up invuln, that's pretty good.
Really good.
Especially given the fact that we already know that Celestine will buff that, can't she?
Most likely.
No, I think, well, current bait. Well, yeah, I imagine she's got a new version in this book as well. So forget that. That doesn't matter. And then lastly, we have Zealot. When resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a model in this unit, you can re-roll the hit roll if the model's unit made a charge move, was charged, or performed a heroic intervention. So, again, another melee-formed thing, but you essentially get to re-roll your hits.
Super good on those Sister Repentia with their massive chainswords.
Or the flagellant things, the old flaggies with the, know, with their, what are they, the arc flagellants.
The Arco flatulence, not flatulence.
The Arco flatulence?
Yeah.
Yes, when the Arco flatulence comes a knocking with Zealot, on point, it's all sorts of scary. So, I mean, look, is that initially telling me that it's Space Marine good? Probably not. But at the same point, we don't know what kind of points entry level we're talking about with Sisters. I would imagine that there'll be a couple points, if not quite a few points shy of their Primaris pals. But, does anyone know what the point of a Battle Sister is at this moment in time?
I would hazard a guess at around 10 points.
Yeah, so that's where I would pin it.
Like Scion levels. So their gun's not as good, but their armour is better, kind of thing.
Yeah. So, if you're thinking that you can get 10 of these girls for 100 points, say, as an example, that's quite a lot of bodies to be able to then add in all these extra little bits and pieces. Of the 4 that they've shown there, I would say the Martyrdom one is pretty much leading the charge for me. I think the ability to, when I die, have a 1 in 3 chance of shooting back is definitely something that would be very interesting to me. But yeah, Joe, what do you reckon of that selection?
I think that's probably the one I'd go for, or the one to get the 6-up invuln and deny powers. But the thing is, if you're running, because if we assume that they are 100 points for 10, you could probably fill a brigade quite happily on this. If you run 60 of these girls with the "when I die I shoot you," that's super powerful.
Yeah. Well, that means that on average, 20 of them after they die will have shot back at you.
Yeah. So I'd probably go for that one. I think if you're running a pure like Sister Repentant or the flagellant army, then obviously the Exploding Sixes combat one would be the route to go.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Phil? Any of that stand out to you?
No, the ones you mentioned are probably the best. I guess unless you're going to somehow run a real close combat one, I don't think you'd probably want the Zealot one. Yeah, I think the shooting again is probably the good option.
Yeah, especially when you think like this whole army is based around rocking up in transports, blitzing across the table, jumping out, and just shooting you with close range firepower. So you're going to if you die, you want to get the maximum out of those flamers and melter weapons.
Yeah. I think this is a very mid-range heavy army, and I think it's going to be interesting because one of the things that obviously you can't really see in the army at this moment in time beyond the the piano gun, the organ gun, the tank with the organ on it that shoots the missiles. There's not really a huge amount of long-range fire in the list. It seems like very, very close range. So, yeah, having something that
I know they had those the heavy weapon team they used to run. It's like a Devastator squad, and their options were I think it was heavy bolter, heavy flamer, or multi melter. So you can have a couple of squads of sisters in the back with 4 heavy bolters in.
Yeah, but that's not really.
So that's about it.
I don't know. Well, anyway, we digress. So, lastly, in terms of other things that are kind of universal for these guys, is also the idea that they're going to have their equivalent of chapter tactics. So you've got the Order Convictions. So like the chapter tactics for Space Marines, or the Craftworld attributes for Craftworld Elder, or the masks for Harlequins, or I don't know, Hive Fleet for the Tyranids. this is their version of that. So the two that they've given us visibility of so far is the Blood of the Martyrs actual faction. So essentially, this chapter tactic, or rather, sorry, this order conviction, allows you to gain 1 miracle dice at the end of any phase other than the morale phase in which any unit with this conviction were destroyed. This is in addition to any miracle dice gained at the end of phase in which a character unit with the axe of favorability was destroyed. In addition, when resolving attack made by this model with this conviction, add 1 to the hit roll if 1 or more models from that model's unit have been destroyed in this battle, even if they have been subsequently returned to the battlefield. So, extra miracle dice and extra hits, or rather +1 to hit. I mean, it's not too bad, is it? A bit wordy, but not too bad, I reckon.
Yeah, so that doubles up well with the when I die, I shoot you army. Because at the end of the day, models die in units.
Yeah.
So, having an army that gets better the more you shoot at it is always going to win out.
Yeah, especially given the fact that that is still in effect even if you brought the model back to life. I mean, that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, you're like, oh, you've killed one of my 10 ladies. Oh, she's back again, and they all hit you on 2 now.
Yeah.
It basically really forces your opponent to, if you're going to shoot a unit, you've got to really try and take them out that turn. Because if you leave just a few of them alive, they're going to just suddenly be that much better. So I like that ability. It also makes doing the odd mortal wound here and there on a 10-man squad almost pointless. Because if you're only going to kill one of them, but you suddenly give them all +1 to the hit roll, it's like that. That's quite a dangerous thing to do now on these guys, because you basically have to take out like half their squad to almost make up for the fact that they're getting that +1 to hit roll.
Yeah. Add to the fact that, a lot of them are armed with, like, assault weapons, like melter guns and things. So,
Yeah.
You're nullifying that advancing and shooting situation for guns like that. That's pretty big. But on the topic of ignoring the negative influence of advancing and shooting, if you are the Agent Shroud, which is a beautiful silver colour scheme, actually, I have to admit. I really like that silver scheme. What do you reckon, Phil?
Oh, the silver scheme is stunning, yeah. We've not seen it anywhere else either, so it'd be nice to see a bit more of that. It's like they've stolen the colour scheme from the Grey Knights with the silver and the red and the black. So it'd be really good to see more of this one. I think it'd be quite an easy one to paint because you could spray it majority silver.
GW seems to be really liking these silver paint jobs. Because is it the silver skulls that seem to be popping up all over the Warhammer community?
Oh, really?
A bunch of our team members have painted armies. 3 out of 5 of them are all silver skulls or silver snakes or...
is it Silver Templars? Because they're the ones that they've used in the Warhammer Conquest magazine as like a unique faction. And I think that was created by Darren Latham. Latham.
Because they're just like, it's just a really easy colour scheme to do. You spray it silver, you wash it Known Oil Gloss, you tidy it up a bit, and then you paint all the details on. But some models it looks really good on, but the problem is it's a colour scheme you don't want to overuse because it gets a bit tedious. Given coming from someone that has done multiple Iron Warriors armies, it gets boring real quick.
And the problem with silver also is it probably doesn't look all that good on vehicles. But saying that, the sisters have enough detail on them, so there's not a lot of large flat panels. Yeah. So I think they could probably get away with this quite easily.
Yeah, they're covered in detail, so I think they won't suffer with the problem like other Imperial Marine armies for sure. But if I didn't mention it already, what this deeds not words ability grants your beautiful Silver Sisters is that when a unit with this conviction advances, it can fire range weapons as if it had moved without advancing. Ooh! So, sort of like the Black Legion, I think? Although the Black Legion...
Legion turns rapid fire weapons into assault. So if it's rapid fire 2, it becomes assault 2.
So this is better.
Yeah, because you don't get the minus to shoot with your assault weapons.
And also you don't get the minus to shoot with your bolt guns, which stay as bolt guns, so they're still shooting 2 shots at 12 inches still.
Much better.
Yeah. That's pretty good. I mean, it's not game-breaking, but for an army that specialises in getting up close and personal, it's pretty reasonable.
You don't want to paint all of those tanks. This is the perfect backup for you.
Oh, what? Just running up the table, you mean?
Yeah, just running up the table, dying to fire, and then shooting when you die.
I have to admit, though, even with the tanks, though, right? Because, I mean, you could imagine at the start of the game you could set up your line of rhinos, like, you know, have like a few rhinos at the front just sort of in a line, and then they get out free, move 6, I assume, advance D6, and then obviously you go, oh, look, I've got this 6 here in the old faith pool, so then they're going to move the 12, and then they can literally, in like the opening turn, start going, here's a bunch of melter guns, which could be fun.
Yeah. I think you can actually run like 5-man squads of just all flamers.
Oh, really?
All melter guns.
Wow.
So yeah, it's gonna be fun, especially when you've got like, if you think like you're running Seraphim as well, and they've all got hand flamers. They're gonna move 12, advance, and then hand flame you, then charge into you.
It's gonna get pretty warm by the fire when the Sisters of Battle come out, isn't it?
Yeah, it's gonna hurt. I think like you're gonna see things like all Seraphim armies kind of stuff popping up to kind of help deal with like things like Space Marines to try and tie them up as quickly as possible.
I mean, I think it's really exciting and interesting for sure. I think, you know, this is an army that's coming to the table with some interesting mechanics, and interesting mechanics don't always immediately mean game-breakingly brilliant, but in the hands of a skilled player it can make some significant impact. And I think that's going to be one of the more interesting things to see with the Sisters, is if they actually have the potential in them to, you know, come up against that current strong Space Marine meta and actually make a meaningful impact to that, or whether or not, you know, within the arms race of competitive 40k, whether they just kind of come out and kind of get relegated to sort of the mid-table. But again, at the same time, even if that does happen, there's such a beautiful range of incredibly well-designed and developed miniatures that I think a lot of hobbyists out there are going to be really, really excited about this range, not just because of the fact that they may or may not have some competitive angles, but just because they're really, really great to look at. And I think that's, you know, that's Games Workshop at its best, right? Is that oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I think that they're going to be one of these armies that turns up and basically they're not going to break the game, but they're going to make armies like Space Marines and stuff that are doing really well at the moment have to change their game plan, which is only a good thing. Because then it stops the game from being stagnant. They might not be hyper powerful, but they could be a really good gatekeeper army.
Well, I think as well, you know, there were a lot of people early doors doing really, really well with the new Space Marine book by just taking Primaris Horde armies, such as having, you know, tens, potentially hundreds of Primaris Marines. And those were actually really powerful because people were really struggling to get through them. I mean, in theory, in a 2,000-point ITC format, you could have hundreds of these, right? I mean, you could have hundreds, and I'm sure Games Workshop would insist that that's what you do, surely.
Yeah, just sell as many kits as quickly as possible.
Yeah. But no, I'm excited for it, man. I think, again, as a range, it's great. I'm of the opinion that it's always worth owning a few of everything from the Imperial range, because ultimately, you know, if you own some really good baseline units from all the different Imperial factions, you can do a lot of really fun, creative army building between Space Marines, Sisters, Inquisition, Imperial Knights, AdMech. What have I missed? Astra Militarum. Oh my god, I'm sorry, Phil. The Krieg, so on and so forth. It's yeah. I mean, that's the ticket to fun right there, as well as, you know, a greatly reduced bank balance. But yeah, it's good times. What do you think of all this, Phil? Sounding good?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm keen to see those final few units that they've that are going to be in the codex that they don't have models for yet. So in the previews for the rules, there's a kind of, it's like a little convoy of what's the way to describe it? It's basically a bunch of sisters with all these holy relics that they've gathered together.
Oh, you're talking about...
And that in its...
Isn't that a leak?
No, it's because they previewed the... Like, people have the codex that they previewed, like, on YouTube. So if you listen to, like, Guerrilla Miniatures Gaming, they all get to preview the codex the day it gets pre-ordered. So I've seen it through there, so it's not a leak.
Have they shown any imagery of it?
Well, no, that's the thing. So there's no image of it. So the implication is that miniature hasn't been made yet, but there's a piece of artwork in there which does represent it.
It's like returning to the old days. They've actually got something that they've not made a model for yet. That's madness.
Well, I think that's the problem with this codex, is they sort of promised everyone it would be out this year, but not everything is ready for this year. So they've done this mini easy build box, and they've done a codex. And I assume it's going to be the same codex. I mean, they could add in the extra artwork for the miniatures once the miniatures are available. But I think they have said it's early 2020 when all the other stuff comes out.
Yeah, it's better. I think it's better to have rules for a model they haven't made than have rules and the model, but you can never actually get hold of the model. I know there's a Start Collecting box coming out, but for example, for a long time, you haven't actually been able to buy Obliterators or the Master of Possession or the Great Possessed or the Pressers. So, but like the good old days, you can just convert your models, which is like a cool one. Like the what is it, the 6th edition of the Dark Eldar Codex was literally full of characters that didn't have any models, which was actually a really cool thing, I thought.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, Canis Rex for the Imperial Knights didn't come out for a very, very long time, did he?
No, he avoided.
Yeah, he took his time.
Yeah.
But there you go. No, look, I mean, very exciting release there. Really looking forward to getting my hands on the Codex. I think, you know, next episode we'll do a bit more of a, you know, more in-depth discussion around rules potentially, and look at some of the more interesting elements of it. Yeah, we'll see how all that kind of comes together in the fullness of time, because we've got that, and we've also got the next Psychic Awakening book that's coming out today as well. So there's all sorts of exciting things going on in the 40k hobby as we march towards the conclusion of 2019 and into 2020 and beyond. So yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, this is the biggest, most you know, expansive range of new miniatures for a single faction or a new faction since the Dark Elder, right? So this has not happened since the Drakari, which was what, 2009 the Drakari came out?
I think it was 2000. I think it was earlier than that. It might have been 2006.
No, you've gone mad, Joe. It wasn't 2006, you crazy man.
Okay.
But anyway, let's not start dealing with the who knows what nows. But the point is, it's been a bloody long time since the Dark Elder came out, and they haven't done a fabulous new range of stuff since then. Although, I suppose they did the Adeptus Mechanicus stuff, didn't they? Actually, and the Imperial Knights. And the Chaos
and the
Knights.
Primaris.
And the Primaris. All right, fair
So
enough.
we were wrong.
No,
Yeah,
damn
but
them.
I mean, you say that though. Skitarii came out first, then the Admech came out, and what was Skitarii when it started? It was 2 vehicles and a unit of people and a character, and it wasn't even a character. Crikey, do you remember that when Skitarii didn't have a character?
Yeah, it was just literally just the box set, the Dune Crawler, and the Chicken Walker.
Yeah.
Oh, they had the Rust Stalkers as well, didn't they?
Oh yeah, they did.
They didn't have those. Those came later, I think.
Yeah, they're Mechanicus.
Yeah.
I think. I'm not sure. No, they were Skitarii. So Skitarii was 4 boxes, and then Adeptus Mechanicus was
3.
yeah, well, it was the dudes on tracks. What even did them? Oh, they got the Electro Priests, didn't they?
Yeah. Should we get back to the topic that we're actually talking about?
Crikey, look at that, Phil. We were going to wrap it up, mate. This is the conclusion. This is how
Fair
we're
enough.
getting through it. Look, that's that bit done.
Dead.
Sorry. Phil's outside in the cold. We've done this very last minute. It's fairly evident. We apologise.
You get a 5-minute ramble, and then after that I cut you off. That's the deal.
That seems totally reasonable. On the topic of that, let's move on to whatever comes next. Thank you very much. Woo! Welcome back, everybody. In this part of the podcast, me and Phil are going to talk about the Inquisition, or rather, the addition of new Inquisition rules found within the pages of White Dwarf November issue, or whatever they go for in numbering conventions these days. It's all very confusing, isn't it, Phil?
But no, you're right. It is November.
There you go. I was familiar with
even
the
though
month.
it comes out. Oh no, it is actually still November, isn't it? Yeah.
This is very much November.
Yeah, it is.
November the 18th today. It's been a manic and strange process recording this episode, I will say. But to be honest with you, you've probably already heard about that in the intro, so I won't bother repeating myself now. So Phil is joining me to talk about the Inquisition because of all the people that I know, Phil is something of an Inquisition fanboy. I think, obviously these guys, kind of portray a part of the Warhammer 40,000 hobby that you're quite into. Is that not correct, Phil?
Yeah, no, that is completely spot on. I do love my Inquisition, and I'm probably one of the few people that bother to run them because they're not very good.
I mean, not to spoil anything to come, Phil, but would you say from the outset that this is a positive change for the Inquisition, or do you feel like it's not significant enough to really matter?
It's like 2 steps forwards, one step back, and then like 2 to the left.
2 to the left?
2 to the left. It's like it's slightly better, but they're not as good in some places. But arguably it is better, I'd say, but just not by a lot. It's not going to be game breaking, I don't think. But then we can get into it when we talk about it.
Well, no.
Maybe we'll change your mind as we go through it.
Well, I think the thing is as well, and obviously this will not be understood until we start to see the Sisters of Battle, the Adeptus Sororitas stuff starting to come out into the wider world, but I think that could potentially be a place where the Inquisition starts to have a little bit more viability. I think the problem is with the Inquisition up to this point has been that they've really had very difficult places within the game because ultimately they've never really fit into the Marine builds and they've never necessarily felt necessary when looking at things like the Imperial Knight builds. Where they've probably had a place is in, like, say, Astra Militarum builds, which is obviously where Phil has frequented them. But yeah, as the Imperial forces go, I don't know with the Inquisition, it's always been that weird one where it's, back in the olden days where Cotiers was such a, value for points, very, very efficient HQ choice, it always made sense to find room for him. But as it concerns the current kind of meta, not that I want to get too preoccupied with that, I don't know. I've always struggled to find a reason to take the Inquisition, and I own a number of Inquisition models, but I very rarely use them. But
you do sometimes see them in Talons of the Emperor lists, especially before they changed the rules regarding being battle forged. So before you would take the Inquisitors for the HQ choices within your battalion to go alongside your Sisters of Silence and your Guardians of the Emperor. But yeah, you see that a lot less now. I mean, I think you occasionally, thematically, it kind of fits in with the Custodes as well as the Guard. Yeah. Should we dig into the rules?
Why ever not, Phil? Where would you like to begin? I suppose we should do it in some form of chronological order, or would you like to start with the characters? How do you want to do it? No,
let's start at the very beginning and talk about the unit abilities, which is, or the army-wide ability, which is Quarry. So before, in the original version, you get, and you still, even now, you get 3 versions of it, depending on which order you are. So Ordo Malleus, which is basically against Chaos and Demons. Ordo Hereticus is against Chaos and Psykers. And then Ordo Xenos is against anyone that doesn't have a Chaos, Imperium, or unaligned keyword. And before, against those keywords, you got to just re-roll hit rolls of 1 and wound rolls of 1. But now they've just made it, you can re-roll any hit rolls or any wound rolls, which actually makes this really good.
No, agreed. Do you find it funny how for Ordo Xenos, because there's too many keywords, they just went, if it doesn't have this, so in all the other instances they've said, if it has these keywords, but then in Ordo Xenos they've gone, if it
yes,
doesn't have
it
these
would
keywords,
be, Orc, Necron, etc., and then if that limits them if they ever release anything else. There's also Ordo Minoris, which is against just a character.
Yeah.
Because that's like a generic one, like, oh, we don't know what to do. Let's make it. There's actually probably might actually have the most legs because every army has characters, so you can make a build dedicated to targeting HQ units, whereas everything else is very specific against a matchup. So if you're a tournament player, taking one of the main ordos is you've got to hedge your bets on what you think you'll see.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that will affect Imperium except the Ordo Minoris, which favours characters. So I tend to go with Eisenhorn, which is against Ordo Xenos, which is really good because historically you'd always see a lot of Elder on the table. Now, obviously, with that meta shifting maybe to more Space Marines, then that actually makes that Ordo less useful, I think. So maybe Ordo Minoris is the slightly more generic one, but a bit more niche.
Is there any kind of fluff out there that kind of describes the existence of the Ordo Minoris? This is the absolute first time I've ever heard of them.
Well, I think it basically isn't an actual order. It's just like the minor orders. So they'd be specific to other things. But obviously, they've kind of covered the main ones. I mean, it would be quite nice if there was one that would target Imperium, a bit like how the old Minotaurs used to target Space Marines as like preferred enemy. Because actually, in theory, the Inquisition is built against, looking down and watching itself. So yeah, if there was one that was actually Imperium, I think that would be a bit more interesting than just characters. But character is a bit more, maybe it's a bit more useful.
Well, no, absolutely. I think obviously the majority of people causing a ruckus in the world of the Imperium tend to have war bands around them and be something of a character. So the idea that they, would have benefits against characters definitely makes sense because it kind of portrays the idea of, I suppose, traitor Marines or traitor anything for that matter.
Yeah.
Or,
I mean, you do have Ordo Hereticus, which also targets Psykers. So that's another one that's got a generic keyword, and that's basically the distinction between Malleus and Hereticus. They both target Chaos, but one's specifically against demons, one's against Psykers.
No, absolutely. If only there was some kind of gun that you could equip your Inquisitor with that could target a character.
Well, we can get to that when we get to Greyfax. Spoilers.
Well, indeed. But is Greyfax's gun generically available? I think it is.
No,
actually,
obviously it's just for her.
No, I think it actually is, mate. I think, what's it called now? A Condemner Bolter? Yeah. I think that's broadly available to everyone.
What, in the Wargear section?
Yeah, I think it's 1 point.
Oh, well, we can check that out. Would it have the same rules, though?
Well, no, I was just frantically looking myself to see if my random ramblings have resulted in anything interesting. Yeah, so when resolving an attack made with this weapon, psychic units, this weapon damage resistance of D3. Oh, no. So you can take it, and it does D3 damage, but it doesn't allow you to target them, like with Greyfax. Did you want to talk about their other ability? The ability to get into vehicles and such?
Yeah, so they've got the authority of the Inquisition, which is the same as before, which basically allows them to embark on any transport that is got the Imperium keyword, but you still have to apply any other kind of keyword loopholes. So, for example, if you've got a Terminator Inquisitor, you can only go in vehicles that allow you to have a Terminator armor. So I believe that means they can't specifically go in things like repulsors, because that stipulates that you have to be Primaris. So I don't think they can go in those. And then they've given you a few extra rules, and this is like the big change, really. So if you are battle forged, the following rules apply. I won't read them out explicitly, but it says you can't have more than one Inquisitor included in any Inquisition detachments. So that basically stops you from having like a Supreme Command with 3 HQs all being a different Inquisitor, because that is kind of something you saw quite a lot of when you did see them in tournament play. So that actually just in itself really limits how many Inquisitors you're going to have in an army. It's predominantly going to be one now, because Inquisition don't really work on their own. You have to ally in a bigger force. So normally you would just take one detachment of Inquisition. I mean, you could maybe run 2 and then a battalion of something else, and that way you get your 2 different Inquisitors in there. The other one, which is a big change, basically says you can, if your army doesn't include any Inquisition detachments, you can just take one Inquisitor on their own, and you can basically slot that into any Imperium keyworded detachments, as long as it doesn't have the keyword Fallen. It also doesn't prevent the detachment abilities such as chapter tactics, combat doctrines, canticles, etc., etc. And then it says in match play games, the Inquisitor is ignored for purposes of Battle Brothers rules, although your army must still all have the Imperium faction keyword. So this basically means you can take a Space Marine army and you can just take one extra Inquisitor and just slot that into your detachment.
And that will not get rid of any of your doctrines or anything?
No, nothing at all.
Well, there you go. So it's very likely then that you might start to see the return of the Inquisitor in people's armies.
I mean, it's the downside of this one is you can only take your one Inquisitor. You can't get any of the extra units like the Acolytes, which now have a bit more use, I think. I think just plug and play one Inquisitor if there's a good one, then you might see that Inquisitor pop up quite a lot. It also gives you access to some kind of stratagems. So maybe people will be taking them just for that, but I don't think any of your stratagems are uniquely good enough to potentially do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to talk through the stratagems?
Yeah, I mean, purely for the first one, because it is mental, and it's not necessarily good, but it's called Cyclonic Torpedo.
Yeah.
It is 4 CPs, which is a whopper.
I mean, I suppose, so this is the second only 4 CP stratagem out there.
Because the other one is
Agents of Vect.
Yeah, I think so. Unless there's another one launching out there.
Agents of Vect, is it?
Apparently.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Let's read it and you tell me. Okay, so use a stratagem in your shooting phase. If your Inquisitor model from your army is on the battlefield, select 1 point on the battlefield and roll 1d6 for each unit within 2d6 of that point, subtracting 1 for the result if it's a character. On roll of a 4 up, they suffer D3 mortal wounds, and you can only use a stratagem once per battle. Ooh. So basically, you roll 2d6, and that's your distance, and then anything within that bubble on a 4-up suffers D3 mortal wounds, which if your opponent is super like blobbed up, then it might be worth doing. But the fact that you could roll 2, I mean, it's basically a 5 CP stratagem, because you're probably going to roll badly on your 2d6 and you might want to re-roll it. Or the thing you want to put mortal wounds on, you roll under 4, so you might want to re-roll that.
Yeah.
So it just seems like a really expensive. I mean, I wouldn't ever play it unless the opponent is really got lots of like low model count units that are all near each other within like 6 inches. Then because then you're likely to roll that. I don't know. What do you think? I'm not impressed by it.
I mean, so orbital bombardment has been a Space Marine rule now for a while, and I've not seen a great deal of people use that. Now that's free CP, I believe, has all the same criteria, the only variable being that I think the distance that is drawn is 1d6 as opposed to 2d6, so obviously it has half the area of effect, although obviously 2d6 can get the same result as 1d6 if you're unlucky enough. I mean, I never massively rate these roll-off, see how many mortal wound things you do. I mean, don't get me wrong, in certain instances it can definitely assist. And I suppose, you know, when you're up against things like, Marines and the, you know, current meta, anything that can shave wounds off of that big kind of block of characters that will probably exist in your opponent's lines is definitely important. But you're never going to kill those characters with all these mortal wounds. You're probably not going to kill more than one Intercessor Marine with all these mortal wounds.
Exactly. At most, if there's a whole bunch of units that you can target, at best you're killing 2 or 3 Space Marines.
Yeah. I mean, 2 Space Marines would be a miracle because no one's taking regular Marines anymore. So yeah. I mean, best case scenario, you'd kill 1 Intercessor. And you'd potentially do 3 damage to a few characters. Now, if you've built an army around it and you've got... Because, again, one of the things to remember at this point, I suppose, is that if you're looking at something that's mixed Imperium, or you're just thinking of taking this in as an addition to your Space Marine list, because if you've just got that one Inquisitor can still use this ability, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I suppose you could go, look, here's a big bombardment, and then here's a bunch of Raven Guard eliminators that are going to now, you know, mop up everything that's left, because all of a sudden, all I've got to do is 2 damage, 3 damage here and there to a bunch of characters, so you can have maybe like 3 squads of snipers shooting a character each and guaranteeing on top of the additional damage. But again, you're only actually doing the D3 mortal wounds to these characters on a roll of a 5, so... Yeah,
so it's pretty hard to pull off.
Yeah.
That's the thing, for its cost, the mortal wounds is sort of a bit unreliable. Yeah. I'm pretty sure, isn't there a Necron one, which I think is only 2 or 3 CP, and you pick a point on the map, and is there something like you draw a line, or
possibly,
it's from that point, but I think it does D3 mortal wounds.
Yeah, but I think there's a
flats.
model requirement.
You don't have to roll off for it.
Yeah, but I think there's a specific model requirement for that. Isn't that the Doom Scythe ability?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, with that one, it's like it seems like there's a better version of this rule out there for less CP that just works better, and you see people take it for that reason.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you can do it anywhere, so if there's a bunch of people hiding in a ruin that is blocking line of sight, then that sort of thing is useful. Or if you're up against Astra Militarum and their characters have 3 wounds, and if you roll really lucky, you could like get Slayed a Warlord, you know, from turn 1. But you've got to roll well on your range.
Well, exactly.
And then you've got to roll a 5 up to hit a character, and then you've got to roll a 3. It's like, I think any time you use this, it'll be super underwhelming. So I don't think people use it unless you're doing a sort of 16 CP like horde army. Yeah. And you're flush with CP that you're not going to spend. Yeah, because it is similar to there's like a pre-game orbital bombardment thing.
That's the one I was going to mention,
There's the Astra Militarum one,
Yeah.
Which is also underwhelming, because that's basically roll a d6 for each unit, and on a 6-up, they suffer, I want to say it's 1 mortal wound, but maybe it's d3. And every time I do that, it's like I've done 1 mortal wound if I'm lucky, and that's cost me 2 CP, I'm going to say. I don't think it's free, but it's definitely not 1 CP, and it's only worth 1 CP. Anyway, so there's that stratagem, unless you want to talk more about it.
No, I don't think it's worth 4 CP, but then... I don't know. I mean, I imagine 1 in 100 games... It'll do some work for you. Someone will be saying, that's mental. How did that happen? Oh my god. But most of the time, people are going to be like, well, that was uneventful. But again, as is often the case with these things, they say these things and then they play against someone somewhere and they go, ha-ha! And you're like, oh man. Like that went all sorts of wrong. But there you go.
Let's look at the next one, which is Inquisitorial Mandate. So use a stratagem before the battle. Select 1 Inquisitor model from your army that is not your warlord and determine 1 warlord trait for it. It is regarded as your warlord for the purposes of the warlord traits. It can't be a named character or vehicle keyword. You can then give that 1 relic of the Inquisition to that model. All the relics your army include must be different from... must be different and be given to different models. You can only use a stratagem 1 per battle. So that's pretty good. So for 1 CP, you can give them a warlord trait and a relic.
Yeah, which is good value, because ultimately, again, if you're looking at this from the perspective of I'm going to be adding 1 Inquisitor to my Marine list or 1 Inquisitor to my mixed Imperium list, 1 CP represents good value because you're getting 1 warlord trait. And the warlord traits aren't terrible. Which we'll get on to in a minute, but you also get the extra relic, and again there's some reasonable relics in there, which I'm sure again we'll briefly talk about in a moment. But I'm happy with that. That's
good. Yeah, because normally it's a stratagem to give yourself 1 relic, or a stratagem to give yourself the warlord trait. So the fact that there's a stratagem that does both, I think is fantastic. That's definitely a really good one. Seize for Interrogation is the next one, also 1 CP. Use this stratagem in any phase after an enemy character unit is destroyed within 3 inches of an Inquisition unit from your army. Gain D3 command points and subtract 1 from the leadership characteristic of enemy units until the end of the battle. You can only use this stratagem once per battle. I really like this one.
Yeah,
I think it's niche, but when you can pull it off, it'll be fantastic. So it costs you 1. You might just get 1 CP back, in which case it hasn't cost you anything, but you reduce your opponent's leadership by 1.
And the fact that this effect lasts to the end of the game is really significant as well. And it brings into question, again, the points differential in terms of CP between this and the 4 CP ability. Because this being 1 CP, now I understand why it can only be 1 CP, because the potential is you only get back 1 CP and you wouldn't necessarily want to spend 2, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, look, I think paying 1 CP to get back D3 command points would be good enough. The fact that you have a debuff to leadership is extra good, and again, you could start to, looking at things like Raven Guard, you could start to consider other synergies with this, where you might be thinking, oh, actually though, I could take some Reavers. Not that anyone's really thinking about taking Reavers, but you might start to think about that, because all of a sudden the Reavers are doing a -1 to their leadership, and then these guys are going to do this -1 to the whole kind of leadership of the army as well. So there's a lot of really interesting opportunities here to start doing some leadership shenanigans, but
to try and do that kind of Night Lord thing where you just try and murder people in the morale phase. I
mean,
so
if you're playing against orcs, for example, okay, fair enough, when they're in big mobs they've got plenty of leadership, but when you start whittling them down, if all of a sudden their leadership is being dropped to 5, they're really going to start suffering with that. Tau as well, okay, they've got the bonding knife ritual, but they're not really that hot when it comes to leadership. And especially if you kill their ethereal, which is where most of their leadership buffs are coming from, if you drop the ethereal and then this has this additional minus effect, I mean, all of a sudden the ethereal, I think, makes them leadership 8. You get rid of the ethereal, and now all of a sudden all those tower leadership 5, which means that, they're dying super quick, at least to sort of leadership stuff, and, potential synergies that you've got there. Yeah, I mean, I'm always interested in the leadership mechanic because I've had a lot of success with it in the past. So, yeah, I like it. I think
what I like about it is you don't have to rely on the Inquisitor or the Inquisition unit to kill the unit.
Yeah.
It just has to be within 3 inches. So actually, if you've got a knight or an Astra Militarum, like, tank commander, it's like that can be the thing doing the killing. You just need to run your Inquisition units up the table to get next to a character, which in itself is a bit tricky, but it can happen. So,
well, I think the more and more you look at this, I think and again, we'll talk about specific standout things, but I think when you look at some of these synergies and what you can do, the Terminator Inquisitor is becoming more and more of an interesting option, isn't it? Because the ability to drop him in and chuck him into the enemy, and then with this kind of potential opportunity is good. But a lot of people will tell you that leadership debuffs are not an impressive thing within the game of 40k. I've seen firsthand that that's not accurate, but again, the problem is with leadership is it is a kind of one-shot wonder, because for whatever reason units get braver the smaller they become, which has always baffled me about the system. But if you can optimize it and use it effectively, you can get really amazing results out of it. But there you go.
Right. So the next one is Requisition 1 CP. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase, the fight phase, or your opponent's charge phase when an Imperium infantry or Imperium biker unit from your army that is within 6 inches of a friendly Inquisitor unit fires Overwatch or is chosen to shoot or fight with until the end of that phase when resolving an attack made by a model in that unit against an enemy unit specified in that Inquisitor's unit's quarry ability. You can reroll hit rolls of a 1. So it's a bit wordy.
Yeah, very much
but
so.
It basically means if your Inquisitor, for example, is Ordo Xenos, so you're targeting Elder, Orcs, etc., when an infantry unit or a biker unit with the Imperium keyword, so, Space Marine bikes, Space Marines, infantry, Astra Militarum infantry, is
not
within
Death
6
Riders,
inches.
though, Phil. Not Death Riders.
No, annoyingly. Is within 6 inches of the Inquisitor, and you're either shooting, doing close combat, or firing Overwatch. You can reroll hit rolls of a 1. So it kind of gives them the old quarry ability, which is kind of tasty, because actually trying to get hit rerolls of a 1, especially for my Death Corps of Krieg models, it's impossible unless you take something that isn't a Death Corps of Krieg unit. Admittedly, this isn't a Death Corps of Krieg unit either. But I think thematically, this fits a lot better than Commissar Yarrick, because Commissar Yarrick would not be hanging out with those Krieger boys.
No, I absolutely agree. And I think, again, look, I mean, it's not the best ability of these selection. I think the mandate and the interrogation are the two that are worth talking about. I think everyone who takes an Inquisitor is going to use the mandate to get the Warlord trait and the relic, assuming that they're not using a named character, that is. Which they won't be. Well, they could be, couldn't they? Because obviously, the one Inquisitor thing still can be used by a named character. But yeah, the seize the interrogation ability is definitely the standout one. But again, for people like yourself, Phil, who go first rank fire, second rank fire, or get the reroll ones in the fight phase or the Overwatch phase. I mean, it makes a difference, right?
I mean, for me, it would be my engineers are the things, because they've got Karaka shotguns, so they basically overheat. So rolling a 1 will kill them. So the ability to reroll 1s is actually really good for them. So that's not too bad. Like, I can imagine them in a Storm Chimera with the Inquisitor running up the board, bundling out and then shooting something. Again, the only issue there is it's got to be down to the ordo that you're taking. So you're matchup dependent. So I'll predominantly be either doing Ordo Xenos, assuming that's a prevalent thing, or maybe giving them the Ordo Minoris, and therefore I'm re-rolling against characters. I mean, a Riptide's a character, isn't it? So that would be quite a tasty target, potentially.
That's an interesting point to make. I'm not sure if it is or
Is
it
it?
isn't.
Do you know what? Maybe it isn't. Or it is, but it's got the... it's over 10 wounds, so you can target it, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think that's got potential. I think the only downside is, although Minoris won't be any named characters, so you'll be having to just kind of take your own homebrew Inquisitor, which, as we look on, might actually be the best option.
Potentially. So
the next one up is Inquisitor Greyfax. She's unchanged from the last iteration of her, so I'll quickly run you through the stats. Weapon skill 3 up, ballistic skill 3 up, strength and toughness are both 3, 5 wounds, 4 attacks, leadership 10, and a standout of a 3 up save, which most Inquisitors I don't think actually come with.
I mean, leadership 10 combined with this unquestionable wisdom ability that these guys have. Again, talking about the leadership conundrum, that's really powerful, because having a leadership of 10 is unprecedented in, like, say, guard armies and things of that nature, because most guard units are, what, leadership 6?
Well, if a sergeant will be 7, the average, guy will be 6.
Yeah. So having that all of a sudden become 10, that's very impressive.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, the unquestionable wisdom ability that all Inquisitors have is friendly Imperium units may use this model's leadership instead of their own, whilst within 3 inches of the model. Sorry, 6 inches of the model.
Which is big.
So,
I think something that probably a lot of people overlook, but definitely strong.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, so Greyfax is a really good sort of anti-psyker character. She's got a mastercrafted Condemner bolt gun, which has a range of 24 rapid fire 1, strength 4, -1 AP, 1 damage, but when you resolve an attack against a psyker, the damage becomes 3.
Yeah.
That also combos really well with an ability that she has called Psyoculum, I think it's pronounced. This model can,
that'll do.
Yeah. This model can target a psyker character or demon character, even if it's not the closest enemy unit. So you can shoot 24 inches at any psyker or demon character, and against the psyker you're going to do a flat 3 damage, which against some sort of non-marine ones might outright kill them, like Elder, for example. So that's pretty good. She's got power sword, frag crack grenades, and the psych out grenades. Which are D3, only strength 2, but on a hit roll of a 6, you do a mortal wound. She has +1 to her denied the witch rolls. She has 1 psychic power that she can cast, and she can deny 2.
Which is really good.
So that makes her really good. I think she's actually probably the best one of the named characters in a kind of quite generic way.
I think, and again, I don't think, obviously, well, we're away from knowing for sure what the situation's going to be with the Sisters, the Adeptus Sororitas, so on and so forth. I mean, obviously, their book is due to come out pretty soon, but I dare say that we're probably going to find ourselves in a situation where, Inquisitor Greyfax could be one of the more consistent inclusions within, people's Sisters' armies. Obviously,
thematically it would look good.
Yeah, but also, she can use all the vehicles that the Sisters have access to, because she can get in the rhinos. She's, really adds to that kind of thematic. And obviously the fact that you can boost the Sisters units to, like, leadership 10 is, again, going to be super impressive. And then you add that to, like, the Acts of Faith stuff that they're talking about, or rather the Faith dice system that they're talking about. I think, this is going to be... I don't know. I mean, again, a lot of the Inquisition stuff I'm looking at here, I'm thinking about, wow, okay, cool. What actually does this unlock in the Sisters' army? Because I think that's where you're going to start to see really interesting opportunities. And I'm really interested to see how Greyfax stacks up against other Sisters characters. But there you go. Yeah, no, I really like her. I've always really liked her. I think she definitely... sort of fell into a bit of a weird patch, over the last couple of years. But it's really great to see they've kind of looked at some things on her and changed up a few bits and pieces. And I think I don't know. I like Greyfax again.
She's also got she's got a 5 up save, and she's still 85 points. So they haven't. They've not really changed her at all since the index version. But I think she was always like a solid choice.
Yeah.
And if you were running Inquisition, she was the one you'd probably end up taking.
Yeah.
Also, she's like the nicest model in terms of the only one in plastic.
Well, indeed.
Next up is Inquisitor Cotiez.
The former most popular Inquisitor.
Yeah, so same stat lines, but he's got a 2-up save instead of a 3-up save.
Which is
he's
massive.
He's got a bolt pistol. He's got a Cyber Eagle, which is a 24-inch range, assault D6, strength 4 and 1 damage. Mastercrafted Nemesis Demon Hammer.
Yep.
×2 strength, -3 AP, 3 damage. So a Thunder Hammer, basically.
And no negative modifiers.
Yeah,
to hit roll.
that's true. Yeah, no, that's right. So he's hitting on 3s with it, which isn't too bad. So he's got a Refractor Field, a 5-up save. Same leadership ability, but then he's also got Spy Network, which I think they've changed slightly from the last one. So it's when an enemy unit is set up on the battlefield as reinforcements, you may select one friendly Ordo Malleus unit within 6 inches of this model. The selected unit can shoot at that enemy as if it was a shooting phase. Mm-hmm. In addition, once per battle, when your opponent uses a stratagem, this model can use its spy network. If it does, your opponent must spend 1 additional command point to resolve that stratagem, or else it has no effect and command points spent on it on the stratagem are considered not to have been spent. This can't be used on stratagems that are before the battle. Mm-hmm. So I think that's 2 really solid abilities.
I think the problem with it is that obviously if you're going to take Cotiez, you all of a sudden have to then start thinking about, okay, cool, I've got to take Ordo Malleus units to accompany him, because obviously he can't use this on himself, or can he? Mm-hmm. He can do.
Yes.
Yeah, so he
I
can
mean, but would you really want to? You've got your Cyber Eagle. I mean, it keeps costs down, so you could just take him on his own. But he is sort of more designed to be taken with a bunch of acolytes, I think. And there's some good combos with the acolytes in terms of, because you can load them out with basically any weapon under the sun.
I suppose the complexity of that though is the fact that then all of a sudden you have to take him in like a Vanguard detachment. Which changes things quite a bit in terms of his flexibility, because you're not going to be able to just add this guy to any Imperium army.
No, yeah, that's true. That would be the downside. So, I mean, best you'd be probably taking the Cyber Eagle then, just to get your D6.
Well, true.
Attacks. I mean, that then, if you're just taking him on his own, isn't very good. But the ability to make your opponent spend an extra command point is really good. Yeah,
I mean, it can't be understated, because in other instances where this rule comes into effect, there's usually a 4+ result used to unlock it.
Yeah, so, for the Collectus Assassin.
Yeah, so when I think it's the Kaladas, actually.
Kaladas, I always get those 2.
Yeah, I know, it's very easy to. But I think when the Kaladas Assassin does it, you need like a 4+, and I think there's been a couple of other instances where that's been the case. I think there's a Marine variant that does the same now as well, but again, I can't necessarily remember for certain. I think Raven Guard have that ability based on the same thing. But yeah, I mean, the fact he just gets it is pretty impressive. Because obviously that can make things quite expensive quite early on, which is cool. So yeah, I mean, look, even if you don't take him with an Ordo Malleus unit, he's still pretty reasonable. He casts 2 psychic powers, only denies 1. Which, I don't know, it depends really what you're looking for in terms of how these psychic powers work, and we'll talk about this in a moment, but yeah.
Ooh, well, there's a really, you can make him actually a really good anti-deep strike unit if you combo it with one of the psychic powers, which we can get onto when we go through them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Who's next, Phil?
There's Inquisitor Karamazov, who's the big guy on the throne. Well, he's a small guy on a big throne with 2 servitors. So he's got a mastercrafted multi-melter, which has a range of 30 inches, assault 1, strength 8, -4 AP, D6 damage, and obviously you, when you're within half range, you roll 2 dice to pick the highest. He's got a mastercrafted power sword, which is strength user, -3 AP, 2 damage, and then he's got the Throne of Judgment's stomping feet. And this is the thing that was changed from the index. So strength user, so only strength 5, -1 AP and 2 damage, but when the bearer fights, you make 2d3 additional attacks with this weapon. So before it was just 2 additional attacks. So I'll run you through it's his stat line. He's a weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, strength and toughness of 5, 8 wounds, 4 attacks, leadership 10, and only a 4-up save, weirdly. But he does get a 4-up invulnerable, which is probably the best one out of all the invulnerable saves that the Inquisitors have. He's got a couple of special abilities. So Supreme Will, when a psychic test is taken for an enemy model within 12 inches of this model, subtract 1 from the total. In addition, if a psychic power manifested by an enemy model targets this model, roll 2d6. If the total is greater than or equal to the psychic test total, this model is not affected by this power. Other models are still affected normally. So it's a sort of like a deny, but it's not denying it per se. But the -1's quite good. He also gets Dread Reputation, so subtract 1 from the leadership characteristic of enemy infantry units whilst they're within 12 inches of this model. So again, that combos quite well with the stratagem if you can combo them together. But yeah, the 2d3 additional attacks on top of your 4 attacks. So that's 6 minimum, up to 11.
Wow, yeah, I mean, up to 10 maximum. No, not up to 10 maximum. It's 2d3, isn't it? So, so when the bearer fights, it makes 2.
Yeah, so it'd be 6 plus 4, so it'd be 10.
10. Yeah, sorry, yeah, you are right. So yeah, no, I mean, look, I think of all of the named Inquisitors, this one to me seems the most worthless. I mean, I'm not a particular fan of his model, not necessarily historically always been that way, but I think in the modern era, his model looks a little bit more janky and outdated. I think the issue with him is that he's a character that wants to kind of get stuck in to the middle of the army to start trying to kind of introduce these -1 debuffs to people's psychic tests, but he moves 5 inches a turn. Admittedly, he can still advance and fire his long-range melter, but, you know, again, it's 1 melter gun shot. So if he advances, it's hitting on 4s with no real other opportunities. And yeah, sure, he's slightly survivable, but, I mean, again, you know, you pepper him with shots from anything, really. I mean, crikey, you shoot him with, you shoot him with Imperial Fist Stalker bolt rifles. You know, he's going to be dead after he fails 3.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, he's still, even though he's got 8 wounds, he's still at that threshold, right, where he can't be targeted. Because it's 8 and under, isn't it? So, but then you can always use stratagems to target characters now. Yeah,
especially with the stalkers, and you know, and he is a vehicle, so he will be getting the additional damage dealt to him by.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So he is. I don't know. In the current world of 140,000, I like the fact that they've adjusted his points down to 115. He seems like he could be good, but I think the reality of it is that he's not that great. I think had he been able to deny psychic tests in addition to everything else, I think he might have been worth it. But the fact that he has no psychic powers whatsoever just really hinders him. And yeah, and I think also as well, he's Order Hereticus, which is a good order to go for because I mean it's good, but it's. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the Chaos and Psycho one. I mean, he's had the biggest points drop from 150 to 115, so yeah. I think they know that he's not worth 150 points. Meanwhile, we didn't say Cotiers was 100 points and it's now 90.
Yep.
So he's gone down just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the... Oh, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you compare this guy to Cotiers, I think Cotiers wins every time. Greyfax is... still kind of... I don't know, it's weird. I know it sounds weird to say Greyfax is leading the conversation. I think the only reason why I think she's leading the conversation is because of the fact that she gets the whole kind of ability to target psychers, and her gun is so good at shooting at psychers.
Well, I think that she does one thing really well, and that's basically kill psychers and annoy psychers by making it much easier to deny their tests. So she's a very... specific character that does one job really well. Everyone else is a bit more generic. I mean, Cotillier's is kind of good at dealing with deep strikers and frustrating your opponent by maybe one stratagem costs one more point.
Yeah.
And he's all right, like in combat and stuff.
Yeah.
Karamazov is a bit more of just a tank to like soak up some firepower.
Yeah.
He's his feet are really good, but a 5-inch movement, you're not really getting into combat unless you get charged.
Yeah.
And he's got a kind of one-shot, multi-melter, which is kind of cool, but it's just one shot a turn, which isn't all that great. I mean, he'd probably be best off just being in the middle of your infantry, especially if you're a guardsman, for example, as like a counter punch for when they get charged into close combat.
Yeah.
And he's used his leadership bubble to benefit them while giving -1 leadership debuff to your opponents, so making your close combat a bit more deadly. But yeah, I mean that was how I would play him for sure.
Yeah, I think again the things that let him down, he can't get into any vehicles because he is himself a vehicle. He doesn't move very fast, and he doesn't have any psychic powers. Plus, his save is nothing special.
Yeah, four up's a bit rubbish. I mean, a 4-up invuln as well. Yeah. I mean, if it was a 3-up save and then 4-up invuln, that would be a lot better. Yeah. And then we get Old Eisenhorn. Who I think is exactly the same as before, but I'll run you through the stats. Movement 6, weapon skill and ballistic skill of 3-up, strength 3, toughness 3, 5 wounds, 4 attacks, leadership 10, 4-up save. No invuln save still, because that's the fluff of the story.
But he's no stranger to pain, Phil.
No, he has no stranger to pain, which means on a 6-up, he does not take a wound, so it's a 6-up feel no pain, which, as a regular user of Eisenhorn, I can tell you is not useful at all.
Oh, good.
He's got an artificer bolt pistol, so range 12, pistol 1, strength 4, -1, 2 damage. The 2 damage is kind of nice. It's your only ranged attack, bar the electrobane grenades, which are 6-inch range. Strength 4, -1, 1 damage. If you target a vehicle, an unmodified wound roll of a 4 or 5 inflicts 1 mortal wound. On a wound roll of a 6, you do D3 mortal wounds, which is kind of cool. I think that might have been slightly changed from the last one. He's got 2 close combat weapons. Only one appears modelled on the model, though, which is fun when you do WYSIWYG games. He's got a Barbara Satyr, which is his sword. So strength user, which is a -3 AP, D3 damage, but you get +1 to your hit rolls. So that was really cool to kind of against generic. It's a bit weird against generic infantry because you don't get any pluses to your strength, but that have really good saves, which is, I have to admit, a very niche situation to be in. His rune staff is what I would argue is maybe slightly better. So it's +3 strength, -1 AP, D3 damage. So this is either very good at killing light infantry because you're wounding them on 2s rather than 3s. And the -1 obviously means, things like guardsmen only have a 5-up save anyway. So it's kind of really good for them. Or do you go for the thing that gives you +1 to hit, but your wounding is going to be a bit rubbish?
Which of these weapons are you saying isn't modelled on him? Because I'm pretty sure he's got both of them.
He's not got the sword modelled on him. He carries the rune staff. Oh, no, wait.
He's got the sword on his belt.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah, just like tucked away.
There you go, you see. There's so much weird detail all over him, you don't even see it.
That's it, because, the sword is... Because he's not carrying the sword. It's or not holding it, sorry. The staff's on his back. I'm not sure it's modelled on, but I'll have to check the pictures.
I'm looking at him right now, Phil. It's definitely there, mate.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. So he's got some extra abilities. So he's obviously got unquestionable wisdom. He's got the radical bond. So let's read the Malleus Codicium, which is his book first. So once per battle, at the end of your movement phase, you can use this ability. If you do so, you lose the unquestionable wisdom ability, which is the leadership buff. Then you can set up a demon host unit within 6 inches of this model and no more than 9 inches away from... and more than 9 inches away from enemy models, which they've changed because before you could just set it up outside of 1 inch, I believe. but you also add 2 to that model's strength, toughness, wounds, and attacks characteristics. And if this model is destroyed, the demon host is also destroyed. So you basically get a souped up demon host. And then the other ability, which is Radical Bond. So whilst the demon host model that was set up via this ability, so the Malleus Codicium ability, is within 6 inches of this model, when resolving an attack roll by that model, add 1 to the hit roll and wound roll, and when resolving an attack against that model, add 1 to the invulnerable save. So that's pretty good, and that's sort of why I always take Eisenhorn for this ability, because I think it's really fun. I mean, it's not necessarily the best and most competitive thing for its points, but I do like it. It's kind of cool.
I mean, he's had a minor points reduction, right? He's 80 points now, yeah?
Yeah, so he went from 100 points to 80 points, and we were talking about it earlier, you still have to pay the 25 points for the Demon Host, so he's gone from effectively 125 to 105.
Yeah.
Which is, you know...
Yeah, a 20-point reduction is not that bad, really. Yeah,
because I always thought he was a bit too expensive. I mean, he probably still is a little bit on the expensive side because he's not got an invuln save, but he can cast 2 psychic powers and deny 2 psychic powers.
Yep.
So he also gets smite, plus, you know, the 2 from the Telephesia discipline. And he's also Ordo Xenos, which... in the meta of lots of Elder going around was always like the most useful one to take.
I mean, and the Demon Host isn't too much of a slouch for what you're getting for it. I mean, you know, it does have its unholy gaze and some other stuff going on, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that now because it kind of combos really well. So Demon Host has movement of 6, basically 4s across from the stat line. So 4 up, weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength, toughness, wounds.
Yep.
But all of those, so strength, toughness, and wounds all get +2.
Yep.
Attacks is free, but then that gets +2. Leadership 7, only a save of 7 up, but he has a 5 up invulnerable save, which becomes a 4 up invulnerable save when you're within 6 inches. It's weapon skill 4 up and ballistic skill 4 up, but that becomes a 3 up when you're within 6 inches of Eisenhorn. So that becomes a bit better. He's got Unholy Gaze, which is a 12-inch assault weapon. I thought it used to be 18, unless it has changed.
It might be that it has changed.
Have a quick look. I mean, I could be wrong, and I'm just getting confused between the...
You've been cheating all this time, Phil, using that 18-inch range.
No, I think it says 18 inches for, like, psychic powers, so it might be that that's what has changed. So have a quick flick through here. No, it was always 12. So
there you
just
go.
Mistaken. So yeah, strength assault 1, strength 8, -1, 1 damage. But if you do a wound roll of a 6 up, the damage becomes 3.
Yep.
Which is niche but pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then his close combat weapon is Warp Grasp. So strength user -3, 1 damage. So that will be with the souped up version. 6, strength 6, -3, 1 damage. Not too bad. Demonic power is always a fun thing that I take it for. So the start of your movement phase, roll a d6 for each model. Oh, that's changed. So it used to be... No, was it... I think before you summoned Cherubiel, which is the named demon host, at the beginning of your turn. Whereas now it's at the
end of the movement phase.
And then you do this ability at the start of your movement phase. Because before what you could do is you could drop him down at the beginning of your turn, then you could roll for your ability at the start of the movement phase. So the shenanigans trick that you used to be able to do is you could summon him down next to outside of 1 inch, but within 3 inches of some infantry or some any ability, and then if you roll on this, you can do some mortal wounds. At the beginning of your movement phase, you roll d6. On a roll of 1 to 2, you get demonic speed, which means your movement characteristic becomes 12 and you gain fly, which is kind of cool. I very rarely use it when I do get it because you want him to stay within 6 inches of the Inquisitor.
Yeah.
The only real benefit is if you desperately want to charge something, but then you want all your bonuses. So maybe you want to, if you want to go grab an objective or sling him across to grab something, maybe that's the only time you do it. If you roll a 3 or 4, renit your host form, so the model regains all its lost wounds, which is super cool. But I don't know, I always found most people ignored my Demon Host. Or on a 5 or 6, which is the one you really want to roll a d6 for each enemy unit within 3 inches of this model. On a 2-up, that enemy unit suffers d3 mortal wounds.
Crikey,
so
2-up as
you
well.
So I always found it was quite good. Like turn 2, you're getting charged in close combat. You drop him down next to your Inquisitor and a bunch of enemy units. You really want to then, in your movement phase, roll a 5 or 6, and then you do basically a D3 mortal wound bomb, because it goes off on a 2-up. So that is super cool.
That's good, yeah. I think the thing is, right, 105 points for 2 characters. You get 11 wounds across both of them, right? Admittedly, obviously, you can't use the Demon Host character to block Eisenhorn. I thought that would have been a potentially quite useful combo, but because the Demon Host is himself a character.
No, this has changed. So before, I'm pretty sure, the Demon Host didn't have the character keyword, and it gained the character keyword when it was summoned. But now all Demon Hosts have the character keyword, which actually makes them a lot better.
Well, I think, in terms of the Demon Host as a potential elite option, if you were looking for a Vanguard detachment, the fact that you can take Demon Hosts and then just have them, floating around the backfield, being bothersome, not being able to be shot by things, especially as they're only 25 points for 4 wounds with a 4-up invuln, 5-up invuln. It's not too unreasonable, is it? For what it is, and, for being an irritating unit, when you can shoot at it, if you leave it on 1 wound and the jammy git rolls a 4, he's got his wounds back. And you go,
exactly,
hey!
yeah, because I tended to find there's only a few times when he's lost a few wounds and he re-heals them, because he either tends to just die outright or just kind of get ignored to the point where he can float around.
Yeah.
Doing stuff for a few turns, and that's probably when he gets killed. So renet host form's kind of cool, but yeah, a bit niche. It works better on the Eisenhorn version of him just because he's got more wounds, so you can kind of take more hits and then have a chance of healing them.
So if you were to rate the Inquisitors with names, who would be your number 1?
I love Eisenhorn. I've got a soft spot. I always run my Lady Eleanor Greyfax, Greyhorn as Eisenhorn, and I still will, because I sort of have to now, I guess. Running her as Greyfax would probably be another choice. I think Greyfax is my personal favourite out of the 4 of them. I think she does work in a particular niche. Then maybe Cotiers, because I love his new abilities for the spy network. I think you could combo that well with a bunch of acolytes, say with Stormbolters, so you could quite easily shoot a unit off the table. And again, if it's against the right target, so, for example, Chaos or the Psychic keyword, I think, then you get to re-roll all your failed hit rolls and wound rolls. So that makes that a really potent shooting phase.
Yeah. I think of the Inquisitors with names, I also feel that Greyfax is going to be the most consistently seen. I think Cotiers has a place, but I think Cotiers is slightly let down by the fact that you need to use him to optimize him with other Inquisition units, and I think for a lot of people looking at this from a more competitive mindset, I think he's probably got a few too many little funny restrictions that don't necessarily feel right. I think if I was to rate the one that I like the least, I don't think it would surprise anyone who just listens to this that it would be him on the vehicle thingamabib, the Throne of Judgment. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Karamuzaz, or however you're supposed to say his name. Would you echo my sentiment, Phil?
He's definitely better than what he was before. The model on one hand I kind of like, but it is a bit dated. If I was to make him, I'd try and update him somehow and just take the core, maybe the top part, but then use some better non-old school Dreadnought legs. It's the one I wouldn't take. and I'm not a fan of the model as it comes. I mean, Cotiers doesn't have a particularly great model. I mean, it's okay for the age. But yeah, I mean, if they got redone in plastic, then I'll potentially pick them up. I just don't think Karamazov is all that good.
No, agreed. I think rather than getting into excruciating detail about all the other little bits and pieces, I think obviously those of you who are already somewhat familiar with Inquisition will know that the actual Inquisition options, i.e. the Inquisitor or Inquisitor in Terminator armour, which is limited exclusively to the Ordo Melius, by the way. So if you want a Terminator armour Inquisitor, it has to be part of the Ordo Melius. And the Inquisitor is clocking at 55 points before War Gear, and the Terminator Inquisitor is around 91 points before War Gear. But what these represent are very flexible units that will allow you to, create and customize, precisely what you want. Sadly, they can't get that well customized that you could potentially give them like a sniper rifle or something that would make them a little bit more, character killy in the form of the Order. I've just forgotten the name of it. That Order, the new Order.
The Minoris.
Yeah, Minoris. That's the words.
It's interesting. Like the bare bones Inquisitor isn't a psyker, but you can just make them a psyker.
Yeah.
In which case they can cast and deny one, and it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
So it's like, why wouldn't you? Or if not, they give the Iron Will ability where. Same as Karamazov's one, where basically you roll 2d6 and that's basically your deny, but you're not stopping the power. It just doesn't affect you.
Yep.
They also get a 5-up invuln save. So literally, Eisenhower's the only one that doesn't have an invuln save, which is ridiculous. But the ability to do kind of custom loadout with your ranged weapons and your melee weapons gives you a lot of flexibility, and for their points. Pretty cheap.
Well, I think as well, when you talk about the customization options, and let's talk about some of the relics, because if you're going to look at the customization option as a one-off one and you're paying your 1 CP to get your relic and get your warlord trait, you're going to want to have to see what is available there. So you've got the Blade of the Ordo, Inquisitor models equipped with Power Sword only. This relic replaces the Power Sword and has the following profile. It is a melee weapon with Strength +1, -3 AP, D3 damage. When resolving attack with this weapon against the unit that is specified by the bearer's quarry, this weapon's damage characteristic is a flat 3 rather than D3. Now again, that's actually pretty reasonable, because again, if you're going to make it, that you're going to be using that against just characters. The fact that you've got a strength 4 character, because obviously the strength for the Inquisitor is 3, that becomes 4. All of a sudden he's got -3 and he's doing a flat 3 damage. You run into, you got to go through the hail of fire to get there, but you run into some Marine characters and you get 2 lucky hits off, or rather not lucky hits, but you get maybe 3 hits off, and then you manage to get 2 wounds or 2 wounds through the volume of attacks and things that you pull off. That's 6 damage that you're gonna do to those.
But also, remember, if you're against that quarry character, you're re-rolling your hit rolls and your wound rolls.
Yeah.
So it gives you, and that can also go on your Ordo Malleus. Can it? I assume they can also just take
any Inquisitor.
Yeah. So. Assuming that one can take a power sword, I'm sure it can.
Of course it can.
So you can deep strike down, charge in, if you want to be so reckless.
It's good. I mean, again, as special souped-up power swords go, this is a pretty reasonable one. They've also got access to digital weapons, Inquisitor models only. When a model with this relic fights, it can make 1 additional attack using the close combat weapon, profile. When resolving the attack, if a hit is scored, the target suffers 1 mortal wound, and the attack sequence ends. Again, quite useful. Again, if you're going to be the Order Minoris and you're going against characters, you're going to get 1 additional attack, which you're going to get to re-roll, and then if you succeed in scoring a hit, you're then going to do 1 mortal wound, which again It's pretty reasonable.
It's not too bad because it's so utilitarian. You could use this against anything.
Yeah.
Like, all you have to do is hit them. Doesn't matter what their toughness is. Doesn't matter what their save is. I mean, yeah, it matters if they've got feel no pain because they still get it against mortal wounds. But the fact you can easily do one wound on anything is quite good. And like that's the thing I like about like just taking Eisenhorn. Like the ability to do smite, I found is a really great addition to my army. So the ability to then do one extra, like one mortal wound, might just be enough to kill that one character you're really desperate to finish off.
Yeah. No, I like it. And the fact is it's not limited by activations. You use it every close combat phase. It's not. So even if you keep fighting, you keep doing it, and that's pretty reasonable. It's not a one-use thing. So
no, yeah. Do you know what the next one's pretty good as well? The Black Shroud.
Well, it's weird with the Black Shroud, isn't it? So do you want to read out what the Black Shroud is?
Yeah, Inquisitor model only. When resolving an attack made against a model with this relic, subtract 1 from the wound roll. So it basically affects your opponents when attacking your Inquisitor. And -1 to your wound roll is way better than +1 toughness, or probably even +1 to your save.
But at the same time, considering most, if not all, Inquisitors are toughness free, the fact that most weapons are going to be winning you on freeze. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Well, no, I would say on average it would be 4s, and you're taking a wound to a 4 up to a 5 up.
I don't know, man. The majority of weapons out there these days, certainly obviously in like Marine land, is strength 4 all round.
Well, that's true, yeah.
So I think you're probably going to find that you're going to be still getting wounded on 4. I think of the generic ability, the generic relics, it's the one I'd probably struggle to find a reason to take the most. But then at the same time, I take on board your point. It is good. It's not bad. But it's not the best within the context.
No, I like it that it gives your Inquisitor a bit more survivability, because that is the thing. Like, they are super squishy. Like, they can die when a stiff breeze just even looks at them. So the fact that this gives, I mean, it's probably not the best, but there are other combos you can do, like getting +1 to your invuln save and stuff like that. So there are options to keep you guys alive a bit. I like that it's different as well, basically. Yeah. It's not just a profile, it's like not a souped up power sword and what have you. Let's quickly go through the others, shall we?
Yeah, so you got the Ignis Judicum, which is a Order Hereticus Inquisition model only. That happens to be armed with an Inferno pistol. The Inferno pistol essentially being a little multi-melter, or a little melter. So it's a range 12, pistol 1, strength 8, -4 d6. If you happen to be within 6 inches of range, or half the weapon's maximum range of 12, you roll 2d6 and discard the lowest. But if the thing you're shooting at is a Psyker or Chaos model, you get this effect regardless of the distance. I would say that this probably isn't as impressive as some of the other options available here. But, you know, it's okay if you happen to be in a situation where you're fighting against Chaos or a Psyker.
Yeah, I mean, a free melter gun at 12-inch range isn't too shabby. I mean, because you're going to spend your 1 CP to give yourself a free relic. So maybe that isn't too bad, but
it's not a free melter, my friend, because you've already got to pay for the pistol, which already has that profile.
True.
But
okay, then yeah, the extra ability against Chaos and Psychers is a bit useless, I'd say. Yeah. It's so niche.
Yeah. So even if you had a Hereticus Inquisitor and you happen to have an Inferno pistol on them, I would argue that you would still want to give the Power Sword, the Blade of Order, or the digital weapons.
Because if you're already within 12 inches, chances are either you're getting charged or you'll be charging them that turn anyway.
Yeah.
So, the next one is Biocorrosive Poisons. So, Ordo Xenos Inquisitor model only. When resolving an attack with a melee weapon by a model with this relic against a unit that is not a vehicle or Titanic, wound roll of 2 is always successful. That is pretty good.
I mean, again, you slap that on anything, really. I think, again, the question is there, like, weapons that do really kind of decent damage, I suppose, because you can take force weapons, can't you, on regular?
Well, yeah, you can give it to. I mean, you can't actually. The only way to get a force weapon is through the Ordo Malleus Inquisitor. So you can't give them. Well, you can't give them the Nemesis Demon weapon. And yes, you can. Yeah,
I think any of the Psychers can have the force weapons, can't they?
No, because there's that the Ordo Malleus Inquisitor specifically says it is equipped with one weapon from the Force weapons list instead of the Nemesis Demon weapon. The regular Inquisitors can only take from the melee weapons or the ranged weapon list. Oh wait, no, you're right.
No.
If it's Psyker, it can take one Force weapon instead of a chainsword.
So you could have a Force sword, which usually doesn't grant you any strength benefits, but does do D3 damage. But then you can have it that it always wounds on 2s against stuff that isn't vehicle or titanic, which is pretty reasonable. So yeah, I mean, obviously you could start thinking about taking
Force sword is probably your best bet because it's strength user -3 D3 damage. Yeah, the Nemesis Demon Hunter, you can only take that hammer if you're Malleus.
Yeah, and obviously that thing does, that thing buffs your strength to the point you're practically getting this anyway, so yeah, I mean, okay, fair enough, you're probably wounding most things on freeze in that situation, but, having a power sword that would otherwise be, say, wounding, I don't know, if you ran into some kind of toughness 6 thing that isn't a vehicle or titanic, no examples come to mind. You run into a unit of Wraithguard, there you go, they're toughness 6, and they don't have the vehicle or titanic keyword, you can be wounding them on 2+ and doing D3 damage at -3. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, because, I mean, you could just take a Thunder Hammer, but again, like I said, it's ×2.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you're only going to be strength 3, so you're only actually going to be strength 6. So, but then it doesn't work against vehicles or Titanic. So there's very few toughness 8 stuff that this is going to work on anyway.
Yeah,
but it's great for work on Riptides.
Work on Riptides. It'll work on Space Marine characters that you'd otherwise be winning on 5s. So
yeah, I mean that's also right because you also get access to. Where is it under ranged weapons? Oh, no, they've changed it. You used to be able to take needle pistols, and obviously, oh no, you still can. Sorry, it's under pistols. Yeah, so you used to take needle pistols, still can. And obviously, you can always wound on a 2-up with those, which combos really well because obviously, if you're against your quarry, you're re-rolling anyway.
Yeah.
So you could load up and make a really good kind of monster hunter unit with like a bunch of acolytes and your Inquisitor.
Yeah. I mean, again, if you're up against orcs, this is quite good because obviously orcs are really tough. Nids, this is really good because again,
Space Marines
as well. But I'm just thinking about Xenos races because obviously this is an Order Xenos thing. But
yes, but it doesn't actually have to be against a Xenos
no.
unit though.
Yeah, no. Just trying to sort of come up with some examples where it's really optimized. But look, I mean, regardless, I think it's a good option. It's something that actually really sort of changes the usefulness of things like a 4-point power sword upgrade. So, no, I like it. And the last one, seeing as Phil did the last one, I'll do this one. The Tainted Blade. So this is for the Order Malleus Inquisition. Models equipped with a power sword only. This relic replaces a power sword and has the following profile. It is a melee weapon, as you would expect. Strength +3, which is pretty substantial. AP -3, 1 damage. In the fight phase, when the bearer is chosen to fight with this for the first time, roll a d6. On a 1, the bearer suffers 1 mortal wound. Ooh, not good. Cannot be used. And then the weapon cannot be used for this phase. When resolving an attack made with this weapon, if the saving throw is failed, you can make 1 additional attack against the same unit using this weapon. This additional attack cannot generate additional attacks. So, effectively, you begin the fight phase, you roll a d6. If you roll a 1, the bearer suffers 1 mortal wound, and that's the end of you fighting with this weapon, so you have to proceed with whatever other weapons you happen to be armed with, or the generic melee attack that is available within the rulebook. Or you get to do lots of attacks, which is kind of nice, at strength +3, -3, 1 damage. What do you reckon, Phil? Do you think that's as good as a bio-corrosive poisonous?
Well, you're
Power
going
sword?
to do 4 attacks, hitting on 3s. If you're lucky, you're re-rolling that as well. Your strength will be 6, which is pretty good. So you're going to be maybe wounding on 3s or 4s. And again, if you're against the right target, you're going to be re-rolling them. -3 means it's probably not going to get a save unless it's got invuln or feel no pain. And then even if it still gets a feel no pain, it means it's taken that wound because it's failed its saving throw. Therefore, that gives you 1 extra attack. So you do 4 attacks. Maximum you'll get out of this is 8 in total. I mean, that seems quite unlikely. Most likely you'll probably just get 1 or 2. Yeah, not too bad. It's sort of a bit of a horde killer, I guess, because you're just doing lots of one damage.
I'm not so sure it's that great, though. I think Strength plus 3 is cool because it makes you Strength 7, which is good against stuff. But for Order Malleus, I'm a bit surprised. I would have thought they would have done something like, ignores invulnerable saves or something of that nature, or some kind of incantation that has a negative influence against demons. But yeah, it's fine. I think of all of them, if I was to give my verdict, I would consider digital weapons. I would consider the Blade of the Ordo. But I would also very, very strongly consider the bio-corrosive poisons. I think those are your 3 best options. Black Shroud has a potential, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Blade's all right. I think I quite like Black Shroud just for a bit more survivability.
Yeah.
But I think digital weapons would be my easy go-to one because it then gives you the option of still taking a different weapon. You don't have to, worry about loading it up. So bio-corrosive poisons only works on Ordo Xenos, so that limits you if you want to take a different Ordo. Yeah. Digital weapons can be used against anyone, and then the Blade of the Ordo requires you to take a power sword. So if you maybe want to load yourself out with a thunder hammer, just because you've still got that flexibility. Black Shroud again. I like digital weapons and Black Shroud the most, I think.
Yeah. I think on balance, if I was going to use the Order Minoris, I would probably go with the Blade of the Ordo, just because of the fact you get the free damage.
Yeah.
So on and so forth.
Yeah, that's pretty tasty.
I think it's pretty reasonable for what it is. Should we talk about the psychic powers, Phil?
Well, let's talk about the last 2 units that we can take.
The Acolytes or the Weaponsmiths, the monkeys, the orange monkeys.
Yeah, I mean, we can quickly go over them. The Weaponsmiths, I wouldn't use personally.
No?
I don't think they've changed. Well, I mean, they're all right, but I just hate the model.
Is there nothing else in Age of Sigmar you could use these days to represent one of these little buggers?
Oh, I don't know, maybe.
I don't think there is.
Do you know the thing I would take would be it's a bit too big, but the giant fairy creature that's in the Dark Elder range, with the multiple bug eyes.
Oh, what, the Clawed Fiend?
Yeah, I'd probably take one of them. The really big one that's covered in fur. That would be a really scary looking weaponsmith. But yeah, so it's got a 6-inch move, weapon skill of 6, ballistic skill of 4, strength 2, toughness and wounds of 3, 2 attacks, leadership 7, 7-up save. It has a weapon that has 2 different profiles. So focus strike, 24-inch range, heavy 1, strength 8, -3, 3 damage. So it's a one-shot 24-inch battle cannon, which isn't too bad. Or a scatter shot of 12 inches, assault 6. Strength 4, -1, 1 damage. So that's pretty good. Gives you a lot of flexibility. Has defense orbs, which gives it a 5-up invulnerable save. It's got inconceivable customization. So at the start of your shooting phase, select one friendly order unit within 3 and roll a d6. Apply the results on the following table. Last until the end of the turn. So 1 to 2 is augmented targeting. When resolving an attack made by a model in this unit, you may reroll the hit roll, which is good if you're against a different quarry type, but a bit useless if you're up against the same one. A 3 to 4 is augmented penetration. When resolving an attack roll, you can reroll the wound roll. And again, great for that extra flexibility if you're against a different type than your quarry. On a 5 or 6 total augmentation, when resolving an attack roll, you can reroll the hit and the wound rolls.
Crikey.
So, do you know what? Actually, I'll take it back. These are pretty good.
The model is god-awful, though, isn't it? I mean, like, I mean, okay, fair enough. If there's someone out there who deeply loves these miniatures, then fair enough. And you know, that they're not... it's weird. I'm looking at it right now on the Games Workshop website. It doesn't look like it belongs in the range.
No, it just looks like a monkey, which is very odd for... It looks too real world, I think, rather than a fan, and that's what it's meant to look like. I get it. But at the same time, I'd like it... You know, just chop its head off, put a servo skull on there, make it look really creepy, or make it look like an ungodly beast, like I was saying earlier.
It's the E.T. fingers that I can't get my head around. The weird kind of photo. Yeah, no.
But do you know what? For 18 points for a 24-inch battle cannon, the one-shot battle cannon, that's not too bad. It gives you a lot of customization, because the one problem with Inquisition is they're best when against their quarry target. And when they're not against their quarry target, they're a bit rubbish. Whereas this guy, no matter what, you're going to get a benefit against a different type of unit. The only downside with it, though, is it only works against one unit, which, you know, could be your Inquisitor, in fairness, or your Demon Host. But an Acolyte, at minimum, is only one, but can go up to, I believe, 6. So to maximise that, you want to have a whole squad of, like, 6 men to maximise those rerolls. And with that being said, let's just go on to the Acolytes quickly, and I'll read you through them. These are bog standard guys, pretty much. Movement 6, 4+ for weapon skill and ballistic skill. Strength and toughness 3, 1 wound. It used to be 4, and then it got FAQ to 1, which I hate them forever for doing that. Well, I never even got to play it when it was that good, which is a shame, because I can tell you now, wounds 1, they are ridiculously rubbish. They do get 2 attacks, which, you know, is their one benefit. Leadership 7 and a 5-up save. They come with a las pistol and a chainsword, but they get some extra bonuses. So they can take all the weapon, like pistols, so they can swap out the las pistol for a pistol weapon, so something like needle pistols, or they can swap out the chainsword for a close combat weapon or a ranged weapon, which is a bit annoying because it means you can't have, say, a chainsword plus a gun, or like a thunder hammer and a flamer. You've kind of got to make them dedicated to one thing, which I guess keeps them cheap, but means you can't gear them up for close combat and for shooting as well. So based with a chainsword, they get 3 attacks, which isn't too shabby. They get Loyal Servant, so when they're within 3 inches of an Inquisitor and that Inquisitor suffers any wounds, you can basically intercept that wound on a 2-up, and it basically creates a mortal wound for your Acolyte. Oh, no, it doesn't actually. It used to be. Now that just kills that Acolyte straight out. But but it works like everything else. So it's not like it's... Shield Drones is basically at the very end. So, you know, if your Inquisitor suffers 6 attacks or 6 wounds, you've got to roll, you know, 6 2-ups, and you'll kill a lot of Acolytes. One good thing that is changed now is if your unit of Acolytes is only 1... you gain the character keyword. Okay. Which is really good, but you could have up to 6. So before, when I was running them, I would take 1. I basically take 3 squads of 1, and they'd be running around, and every time someone would be like, "Oh, is that a character?" And I'd be like, "No, you can just shoot it for an easy kill point." And they'd be like, "Great, I'll kill that then," and that's what they would do. So the fact that they've changed that, I think, is really good. Because it can give you, because they're really good at like kind of just anti-deep strike units, like just help increase your like denying the deep strike bubble, give you a bit of board control. Because I mean they're not cheap; they're 8 points for what they do. I think they're a bit too expensive, considering a guardsman is 3 points, and all you're getting is +1 attack in terms of your base profile. You get options to do some cool special weapons and stuff, but you're paying the points for them. So,
I mean, when you look at it this way, though, right? You could have, just to say, you could have an Inquisitor, 2 weaponsmiths, a unit of Acolytes in a drop pod. So that's all right, isn't it? So you could have that, and then you could give them all plasma guns. So you could have 6 Acolytes, all with plasma guns, 19 points a model per Acolyte. You can bring them down with 2 weaponsmiths and the Inquisitor. That would give you 9 things inside of the drop pod. You could put some other kind of marine thing in there if you wanted as well. I don't know what you might want to consider from the old marine character range. Maybe a librarian. Maybe something else entirely. I don't know. This is, one of those conversations where there's possibly opportunities there. And yeah, you can bring them down. Then you can open fire with 12 plasma gun shots, which augmented will allow you to potentially reroll hits and wounds. And then you've also got the 2 focus strikes. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was just sort of thinking out loud, because they've all got authority of the Inquisition. You can whack them in any transport.
Yeah. I always thought loading them into a Valkyrie would be really good, because you can bomb them up the board over 20, up to 20 inches. You can just jump out and then shoot at something. Admittedly, you still now got to be over 9 inches away, but over 20 inches, you can up to like 40 or 48, I think. But on a roll of a 1, one of them dies. Because you're jumping out. So that gives you a lot of range. And originally I always wanted to do that with my Eisenhorn, because it was the only way to get your demon host up the board. So turn 1, you can lob him up the board, jump him out. Then in your next turn, at the start of your turn, you could summon your demon host. But now it's at the start of the movement phase it gets summoned, or was it at the end of the movement phase? It's just double check.
I mean, think
at
about
the
this,
end, at the end of your movement phase. So now you could, turn 1, chuck Eisenhorn out of a Valkyrie, then summon your demon host. So he's all ready to do a charge or something. Turn 1. That's a good way of getting him up the board, I think. Now is something like that. I think Acolytes with Stormbolters has got a lot of potential, because you could be doing up to 4 shots through rolling 1s against the right target. I think the weaponsmiths actually do give you a lot of utility for making that squad better and not having to rely on your quarry ability so much. Admittedly, you are still, if you're taking plasma, you want that reroll to 1s. But you've got a pretty decent chance. So you'd have to roll a 1 or 2 or a 5 and 6, which is a 2 in 3 chance of getting. So then you can overcharge your plasma and blast something off the table. Yeah,
but again, if you take 2 weaponsmiths, you can trigger it on them twice.
Ooh, that's establishing these.
There's no limit.
Yeah, wow, you're right. So normally with something like this, it'd be you can only use it once on a unit. So in theory, you could double stack it and do it twice.
Yeah, so thus increasing your chances of rerolling hits and wounds.
Yeah, well, that is really good.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, here's another potential opportunity for you. You could take a 5-man Grav Devastator squad in there with them. So you could do 5-man Grav Devastators in there, and then you could have 5 Acolytes, and then you could have 2 drop pods with that. And because of the way drop pods work, turn 1, you can just go bump, and there they are. And then maybe take another 5-man Grav squad in there as well. So 3 drop pods with 3 units of Grav Devastators. Admittedly, you don't really want to do 3 Grav Devastators because they're not actually that good once they go beyond 1 unit, because the only thing that makes Grav Devastators good is that stratagem. But again, just as an option, something to think about, you could do it with that, and then maybe take another drop pod with some other stuff. Again, I'm just sort of thinking out loud here, but yeah, having the extra plasma shots turn up in your opponent's deployment zone turn 1 can be pretty crippling, and you don't care if you lose them because you were expecting to lose them from the outset. You just kind of go, cool, here's a drop pod full of plasma guns, blap blap blap, see what happens. Because you overcharge every single one of them and you fire them into something, you're doing 2 damage a time. You could really shave off a lot of potential scary damage with that, which is quite cool. But there you go. Anyway, there you go. Thinking out loud. I think, Acolytes, 8 points a model. The flexibility. I mean, you can give them a plasma gun. You can give them a flamer, which, again, is something that maybe couldn't be understated because that's got potential options. Although, again, you wouldn't definitely use them in a drop pod in that scenario. You can give them a hotshot las gun. You can give them a thing called an incinerator, but I think.
Oh no, that's Inquisitors only. But the
Yes.
incinerator's like that kind of souped up. Is it a flamer pistol?
But you can get more melter guns, for God's sakes. I mean, imagine,
Yeah, that would be pretty good.
I mean, imagine in like the marine meta that you're seeing a lot now, if you came up against someone who's got, I don't know, 3 repulsors, and you went, cool, here's 3 units of acolytes with here's 18 melter guns, turn 1. You know, re-rolling to hit, re-rolling to wound. You would possibly really, really annoy your opponent there, and you know that's costing you 22 points a model. So you could take a unit of 6 of them for 132 points, which would mean that 3 units of them would be less than 400 points. Okay, fair enough. You've got to put them in drop pods, and you're talking about relatively circumstantial situations here, but still. You know, it's an option. I think, you know, there was a lot of hoo-ha once upon a time about Militarum Tempestus Scions, because their command squads could be loaded up to the 9s with special weapons and dropped in turn 1 and do a lot of damage, and they did a lot of work to make that less viable. Well, inadvertently, and maybe not inadvertently, but, you know, they've kind of brought it back in a weird way, which is...
Well, it's always been like you've always been able to do this from the last, you know, with the index. So it's always been there as an option. I think the thing is you've got to pay extra for a delivery system. Like with the Scions, they could all just deep strike naturally, or you'd be chucking them in a flyer that you'd have anyway. Yeah, I mean, I think the problem with them, though, is they're just squishy. They've got only a 5-up save, only 1 wound. If it was just 2 wounds, it'd be a little bit better. Yeah. I'd love it if there was a bit more customization. I would really love it if you could take the other classic, like, Inquisition units. So what we got, the Arco-Flagellants, the Crusaders, maybe like an Astropath or a Psyker of some kind. Like these were all things that you could originally take in those original books, where they had so much more sort of flavour and customization to the Acolyte. So that the Acolyte now, unfortunately, is just a bit of a generic soldier type, and it'd be lovely if you could take those Flagellants or the Crusaders or something else, just to give them a lot more customization in terms of how you load them out. So that was my one disappointment with the
But you're going to be able to do that though, right? Because you can still go. So you can still go to your Astra Militarum book, and you can still go, cool, I'm going to use Crusaders because they're in the Astra Militarum.
Oh yeah,
book,
no,
right?
you can still do that. Yeah.
And then you can still take an Inquisitor as your HQ choice. So it doesn't matter. It just means that you've got to find different ways of doing it. The reason they've done it like this is because these units aren't represented anywhere else within Warhammer 40,000 literature. So ultimately, if you still want to use your Arc flibby flab things, you take a Sisters of Battle detachment and then add an Inquisitor to it. So, you know,
but I mean, you can't load them into. What I would have liked is they fall under the heading of Inquisition in terms of detachments, so you don't have to. So if I, for example, would want to take my normal Death Call of Krieg with 1 Inquisition detachment, it's like, yeah, I can take Crusaders because I can add them into my Astra Militarum detachment, but I can't take Archaeoflagellants unless I take a Sisters detachment, and then we're getting like too many detachments. It's like, it would have been nice if just the 1 Inquisition detachment could have had access to all of those units just by default. But I get why they haven't, because really all they're doing is they're updating the index, so they can phase that index out.
Yeah.
You know, maybe one day there'll be this will appear in print somewhere else. It'll be in maybe it'll be in a campaign book or something, and then maybe we get access to those other units. Who knows?
Cool, man.
So should we rush through the warlord traits and the psychic powers, and then we can be done?
Indeed.
So the warlord traits, they're broken down into kind of 2 lots. So you've got the first one, your radical, which is once per battle round. You can reroll 1 hit roll, wound roll, damage roll, saving throw, psychic test, or deny the witch test made for this warlord. This is also the one that Inquisitor Eisenhorn takes. So once per battle round, so that's potentially 5 to 6
Even 7.
3 re-rolls, which is pretty good. At one point, I thought I misread it, and I thought it said phase, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. But then once per battle round, so it's not too bad. I mean, it basically saves you 7 CP maximum, most likely 3 or 4 because your Inquisitor will die.
Rerolling psychic tests is pretty powerful.
Do you know what? That's true, and I think one of the reasons why you're taking Inquisitor now is for the psychic powers. Anyway, so the second one is Puritan, so improve the Warlord's invulnerable save by 1 to a maximum of 3, which is pretty tasty. But again, like I said before, there's lots of ways to sort of improve your survivability of your Inquisitor, because normally you have a 5 up by default on your regular Inquisitor.
Yep.
Even one in Terminator armor's only got a 5 up, so you can make it a 4 up, which isn't too bad.
Very good.
And then you can take the Formidable Resolve, add 1 to your Warlord's leadership characteristic, which will take it to 11, and increase the range.
Take it to 10 for regular Inquisitors. Their leadership.
Oh, is it only 9 for those guys?
Yeah. It's only the named ones that have leadership 10.
Ooh, but okay, right. But what you also did, you increase the unquestionable wisdom ability by 6. So that gives you a 12-inch bubble of leadership 10 for all Imperium units, which is pretty good. So Greyfax gets the no escape, which is the very next one. Formidable Resolve, which is one we talked about with the leadership bubble, is taken by Karamazov.
Which will increase him to an 11, which again, and it also increases his aura by an additional 6, so he would have a
18-inch,
12-inch aura for his leadership buff.
Oh right.
18-inch. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And then Coaches gets.
No, it's 12. Sorry, I was reading his dreaded reputation. Yeah, so it changed, but it means his dreaded reputation and his other aura is 12. But yeah, no, and his leadership is definitely leadership 10, so he'd increase to a leadership 11, which is, again, actually, it's possibly good. That's possibly actually useful for certain things.
Nice. So basically, they're the 3 sort of ones that are generic to any ordo, or there's 3 other ones that are specific to a particular ordo. So Ordo Hereticus No Escape, which is the one that Greyfax gets. This warlord can perform a heroic intervention if there's an enemy unit within 6 inches of them instead of 3. When doing so, move up to 6 instead of 3. When an enemy unit is within 1 inch of this warlord and is chosen to fall back, you can roll a d6 unless, of course, they've got a minimum move characteristic. But if you roll a 4 up, that unit cannot fall back. So basically, you can trap that unit in close combat.
6-inch heroic intervention is actually really, really tricksy. Now, obviously, every lovely player of Warhammer 40,000 will remind their opponent that they have a 6-inch heroic intervention, but maybe in certain circumstances you might not. And in doing so, you can really kind of, pull the wool out from people's eyes when you charge in there in heroic intervention form, and then find yourself in a situation where they won't be able to attack you because they didn't declare you as a target of a charge, and then also you're in a situation where you can stop them from falling back on a 4+. Where this gets extra interesting, I suppose, is in ITC elements, because one of the funny things about a lot of ITC conundrums is their love affair with line-of-sight blocking terrain. And one of the more interesting elements of that, certainly if you're coming up against things like Imperial Knights, for example, an Imperial Knight will not be able to charge you for a wall if you're more than 1 inch away from said wall. But if they end up in a very awkward set of circumstances where they're within 6 of you and you're the other side of a wall, they can't declare you as a target because they can't get to you. But you could, phase through the wall and move into this Imperial Knight and potentially prevent it from falling back in its corresponding movement phase.
Are you telling me that Oh, right. So you're saying if a knight can't target you? Yeah, I mean, it's quite niche, because normally a knight would just squish an Inquisitor
Well, look, I
quite
think,
comfortably.
I
but
think,
if you can somehow, if you can heroically intervene into it when it's not targeted you, so it
I suppose the
can't kill you
problem
that
is
turn.
that then in your turn, assuming you didn't leave combat. Yeah, I suppose where it gets interesting, I suppose, is not the knight example is a bad example because the knight will kill you when it gets around to attacking you eventually. But if it's, say, a repulsor happens to be near you, you can just go whoop, phase for a wall, and then stop it from doing anything for the rest of the game. Because Lord knows that repulsor isn't going to kill you.
No, but yeah, I mean, it can fly. I mean, it only works on a. I mean,
it doesn't matter if it can fly though, Phil, because it needs to roll a 4+ to get away from you.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's a 4-up. But yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where chances are they'd be able to pile in with something else and just charge you with something else. But if you stop something from there's 100, 200 odd points shooting for a turn, that's probably worth your 85-point Inquisitor. Or however much it is getting killed.
But it's also
I think it's just the delivery system of getting there to do it.
I mean, the heroic intervention's one aspect of it. Don't forget that you can still use the line of sight blocking terrain to charge it in your phase and still bring this into effect. So again, if you're tricksy with where you put stuff, having this thing, whatever Inquisitor happens to be, coming out through a wall and tagging. A repulsor executioner, for example. I mean, if you've prevented, or even I don't know, like a Leviathan with Thunderfire cannons, not Thunderfire cannons, sorry, Storm cannon arrays. You stop that thing shooting for one turn. That's a pretty solid result for you. Yeah,
for your 55 points is not too bad. Yeah. So the next one is Ordo Xenos. Esoteric law. Yeah. Whilst this warlord is live on a battlefield, roll a d6 each time your opponent uses a stratagem. On a 5-up, you gain 1 command point. So, I mean, you could combo this with another ability that does the same thing for just more chances to gain back CP, but obviously you can only ever gain back 1 per battle round. So maybe you wouldn't do that. But if you, for example, if you're taking Space Marines and there's a much better warlord trait to take, why not just take this guy for this extra ability when your CPs are so precious?
Well, I mean, again, what you've got to remember, though, Phil, is you've paid your 1 CP, haven't you, to get a warlord trait of some description, so there may be a use for this in some set of circumstances, but I think it's probably one of the weakest options available to you. And again, it's all right, but not astounding.
Yeah, and then the last one, Psychic Mastery, which also Inquisitor Cotiez has. So this warlord knows 1 additional psychic power from the Telethesia discipline and can attempt to manifest 1 additional psychic power in your psychic phase.
So he would
deny 1
additional
psychic power
and cast 3 psychic powers now.
Wow! So he knows 3, can deny 3. Is that right?
He knows all the wizardry powers.
Oh, well, because before I was saying, Eisenhorn's the best one for psychic powers, but it isn't. It's him then.
Yeah. He's a psychic monster.
Isn't too shabby. And then I guess we can go on to the psychic powers.
I mean, all of those warlord traits there, I think, are pretty reasonable. I think if we're talking about again, because I think the Ordo Minoris is probably still my favourite of the Ordos at this moment in time. I think I would probably be looking at.
Surely you'd want Puritan to keep your thing alive a bit longer to increase its invulnerable save.
Puritan or Radical is going to be the 2 that you're going to choose for between, aren't you?
I mean, I do like Radical. The ability to re-roll something, re-roll that psychic test is normally... I mean, that's been a clincher sometimes where I've literally had to spend CP to re-roll a psychic power, and it was going to win me the game due to a long series of events. So doing that for free is pretty handy, I think.
Yeah. The only thing that... If Radical also let you re-roll charges, I'd say it was an absolute no-brainer, but I think the fact that it doesn't... you know. And again, watch out for people because they might assume it does, because a lot of people just assume you get a free reroll.
It's anything, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not always the case. Formidable Resolve I like just because I like the whole leadership buff thing, but I think if you're going to bring something down, I don't know, the way I'm looking at this at the moment, I'm thinking a little bit more sacrificial than the leadership buff requires. So, yeah, radical or plus to your invuln for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Telephesia discipline. So they've changed some of these around slightly. So there's 6 regular ones, and then there's one Ordo specific one for each of the 3 main Ordos. So you've got Terrify, has a warp charge value of 6. If manifested, select one unit within 18 inches and visible to the Psyker. Until the start of your next psychic phase, subtract 1 from the leadership characteristic of the models in that unit, and it can't fire Overwatch. So this is one of my favourite ones from before. I would always take Eisenhorn, because the ability to deny Overwatch is really good.
Huge.
The leadership debuff, not that useful, but actually would stack with a bunch of other abilities that are out there in the game.
I mean, if you think to yourself that you can bring down one of these guys in a drop pod or in Terminator armor, and you can go, you're going to get a -1 leadership, and you're not going to fire Overwatch. And you think about the sorts of things that people take, like a big Centurion unit. You turn around that Centurion unit and go, no, mate, no Overwatch for you, and then charge it and try and, like, wrap one unit.
Yeah. Or combo it with the no escape warlord trait. So on a 4-up, they can't fall back. That's a really good, combo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I would always historically use Terrify on something like a Knight to try and charge, or just like a unit and combo it with my Death Riders to try and charge in there, or like you said, just try and wrap up the vehicle so they can't escape.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot, because I think I mean, again, thinking about certain other combinations that you could potentially use with, say, like Raven Guard again, for example. You can use the Warlord trait for your Raven Guard guy to get a unit in super close to your opponent. Assuming your opponent is also a Marine player, then you can also have this guy come down and terrify. If he terrifies, then obviously, in addition to and there's another psychic power in Raven Guard anyway, I think, that stops people from overwatching, so you can like double up on that all over the place. And then there are some leadership debuff stuff as well. So this synergizes really nicely with some of the Raven Guard nonsense. So it wouldn't surprise me if you saw people doing that kind of stuff, because again, stopping those Centurions from shooting you is a pretty big deal, and it could certainly add some really interesting elements to the overall gameplay mechanics and so on. Richie consistently complains about abilities that stop things from overwatching.
It is really strong,
very strong. So that good. Especially if you're re-rolling on the psychic test and all the other stuff. That ain't bad.
Yeah, so we go from a very good one to probably a not very good one. Psychic Fortitude has a warp charge value of 4. If manifested, select one friendly Imperium unit within 12 inches of Psyker until the start of your next psychic phase. When the morale test is taken, do not roll any dice. It automatically passes. I would never take this one.
Are you for... Well, you wouldn't because you played Krieg, but you for real? That is amazing.
Yeah, well, because 2 CP would do it normally. For a National Militarum player, you can spend 1 CP to do it on D3 rather than D6.
Yeah.
I always think, though, if you basically have to know which of your units a turn ahead is going to get smashed to the point where it still survives, but you really need to pass that morale test, which for me, I'm not smart enough to do. So that's why I don't think it works very well. I mean, you could always do it as a fail-safe on something. Like if I'll do it on my Death Riders, for example. If I'm going to charge into combat, that might be a time when I would maybe use it. But I don't know, especially when you've got a 10-inch leadership anyway, or 9-inch. Sorry, not 9-inch, a leadership of 9 or a leadership of 10 on those units. So, I don't know.
Think about this though, Phil, right? Like, you could take a massive unit of conscripts, right? Like, how many did you get in a conscript unit? 30 dudes?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the old style commissar, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Which, for those niche units, yeah, that would be great.
But
no one takes conscripts, but maybe they would with this.
Well, of course, because I mean, how many points is a conscript? 3 points,
5.
4 points, 5
No,
points?
4.
4.
Because the regular inventory's 3.
Yeah.
I think it went up to. Actually, no, regular infantry's 4, and then because Krieg is 5.
Yeah.
So I think conscripts are 5 as well now.
Oh, because you can take massive units of them.
Yeah, because they weirdly made them more expensive than regular infantry.
But I mean,
or maybe they were 3 and then went to 4, so they're the same points, which is why now no one takes them.
But regardless, like 120 points, right? And where this is useful and where I think this is interesting is for, the current chapter approved 2018 Eternal missions, because there's so many missions where you need to hold those objectives and you use like OBSEC units like your conscripts for it, and the 4 up on 2d6 is guaranteed almost all the time. So the fact that you have a 30-man unit of dudes that will never run away is incredible, because that would cost you 2 CP normally, and the fact you're getting it for that, I mean, I think if I was looking at it, I think it would, again, this is specific kind of weird build nonsense, but again, you could take that as a patrol in your army and just go, oh, here's a patrol, and it's a big unit of conscripts and an Inquisitor, and they're just here because I want all these objectives. So, options.
Yeah, fair enough. So now, Dominate. So this used to be my favourite one for Eisenhorn. Warp charge value of 6. If manifested, select one enemy unit within 12 inches of a psyker that is not a vehicle, and roll 3d6. If the total is equal to or greater than the model's leadership characteristic, that model can immediately shoot with one of its weapons as if it was a shooting phase, or make one attack as if it was a fight phase. In either case, treat that model as if it is separate, if it's a separate unit from the part of the army while shooting or attacking close combat weapons. So you could make a character from your enemy shoot its own army. They've changed it slightly. Before, it used to only target characters.
Yeah.
But in the lovely world we were living in, where there were loads of character knights, this was my absolutely favourite thing to do. So in No Retreat, against a guy called Phil, I managed to target one of his knights, and what was it? It was like a Gatling cannon or made with plasma or something, and do a bunch of wounds off of one of his other knights. But it's a niche thing. It very rarely, it's quite hard to pull off, but when it does, it's a good laugh. And it used to be a warp charge value of 7 and be 18-inch range. So now it's 12-inch range. It can't be a vehicle, so no more knights. And you've also then got to roll 3d6 and beat the leadership, which, to be fair, you're probably going to do just statistically, but you might roll really badly.
Yeah.
So now it just feels like they've nerfed it into the ground. I mean, the benefit is it doesn't have to be a character, so it could be anything. And quite often you could maybe just target a decent, unit, and then that one model will get an attack. But when you do close combat, you only do one dice roll, because it's only one attack. It's not attacking with all of its profile, like all the attacks. So the best use of it is with a weapon that does lots of dice, like lots of, heavy 3, heavy 6 or whatever. So now it's a bit more niche. And the fact that it's a 12-inch range makes it almost practically useless to use, I think.
Yeah, I think...
I don't know. Yeah, it's disappointing, because that was my favourite one to use in the past.
My frustration with this is it's got too many stipulations, right? So first of all, you got to roll a 6 on 2d6, which is entirely plausible, but let's say it's still, not guaranteed. Then you got to roll 3d6 to equal the thing's leadership. Now, if it's anything worth, shooting with, it's going to have a leadership of, say, 8, 7 or 8 probably. Again, which is very likely, but not 100% certain. Then you've still got to fire with the weapon, so you've still got to shoot the weapon. And what they've also specified is that your army, while shooting or making that close combat attack, that model is a separate unit that's part of your army, so he no longer benefits from any buffs anyway. So if it was that he was re-rolling for the Chapter Master ability, none of that stuff is in effect anymore. So any of the buffs or things that it was getting before, it's not getting now.
But what it also means is, say you want to shoot with that model, but it is within an inch of another friendly unit, but it is now an enemy unit, so now it can't shoot its weapon because it's now in close combat. So you have to do a close combat attack instead. Yeah. So that's what you've got to watch out for. So it's like too many dice rolls. It's like the range is down to 12 inches. You've got to do a leadership test. It can't be a vehicle. Yeah, I mean, this is a bit like the sort of the cyclonic torpedo stratagem. It's like the Gene Stealer Cult Broodlord has a psychic power which can target any units, and I think you've got to beat the leadership, but you can fire all of its weapons, and it can be, or it used to be, like a vehicle. So I've had it happen to me where it does it in my Shadow Sword is like, I'm pretty sure it's firing all the weapons, or if it's only one, it's like a bloody good one. And the fact that another army has a similar ability, but just does it so much better, it's like, that's frustrating.
I think, the fact that you can still target a character with a plasma pistol or plasma gun and go, I'm going to overcharge it, and hope that you roll that one is, That
would be the best use of this ability, is try and kill a character. By just rolling. But that's a niche thing, I think.
And then the character you're firing at will have a leadership of 10. So again, 3d6 getting a result of a 10.
Or at least 9 at least. So next one's a mental interrogation. Warp charge value of 6. If manifested, select one enemy character model within 12 inches and visible to the Psyker until the start of the next psychic phase. When resolving an attack made by that model, subtract 1 from the hit rolls. If your army is battle forged, roll 3d6. If the result is equal to or greater than the model's leadership characteristic, you gain 1 command point.
Ooh.
So that actually is really cool.
Yeah, I like it.
It's you can kind of do that every turn, right, to farm CP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, again, though, there's nothing about this. This would only be the 1 CP that you could gain back that turn, though, right?
Is it? Would it? Because when you gain, I don't know. Maybe it would fall under that thing.
Yeah, I think. So
that would be a shame.
Yeah, the only stipulation tends to be for the command point stuff is on like stratagems and other things. I mean, again, who knows? This may exceed the minimum expectations of that general rule, but I mean, it's fine.
I think you're right, but that's a nice way of doing it.
Yeah, I just think, again, it's fine. It's not one I'd prioritise.
I mean, -1 to... Well, you could combo it. So give an enemy -1 to hit. Combo it with Dominate if they've got a plasma pistol to make them kill themselves on a 2.
Yeah, true.
I mean, so niche, though. So niche.
But again, I mean, maybe. I think... I mean, it's not... It's certainly not the worst psychic power there. It's not psychic fortitude, eh? Although I quite like psychic fortitude. It's not dominant.
No, I think Terrify is still the best one out of this lot so far.
So good, yeah.
Next one, Psychic Pursuit has a warp charge value of 7. If manifested, select one enemy character unit that only contains models with a wounds characteristic of 10 or less and visible within 18 inches of a Psyker. Then select one friendly order unit within 6 inches of this Psyker, which I assume is your Psyker, from you, not the character you picked. Mm-hmm. Until the end of your next shooting phase, that order unit can target the character even if it's not the closest enemy unit.
So remember what I was saying before about the idea of
a bunch of plasma guns.
I mean, now come on now. So bring it down. Psychic Pursuit. Obviously, if you're going to be the Order Minoris, you're going to then also get the ability to reroll hits and wound rolls against characters. It's pretty flippin' good, isn't it?
Yeah. The fact that it allows you to target characters.
Yeah.
makes that super good.
Huge,
But again, it
man.
only combos with other auto units. So doing it with an Inquisitor is a bit pointless. It has to be something like the Acolyte unit.
Yeah.
that
But
you-
6 acolytes with plasma guns coming down, getting that power on them, targeting the characters. I mean, that's big because again, you're talking 12 shots. Okay, they're hitting on 4s, but they're re-rolling everything. So again, if we math hammer that out, you're going to be talking about 9 hits. 9 hits, yeah. And then because you're overcharging it, you're going to be strength 8. So if you're strength 8 minus 2 damage, you're going to be wounding, let's say 4 times just to be on the safe side of things. And then, okay, they're going to get it on their invuln. Now, let's say 5 wounds just because I'm going to weigh this in their favour. And then they're going to have their invulns if they're characters with invulns, which we'll say for the Space Marine's sake is 4+. But, if they fail 2 out of 5 saves... Oh, and you re-roll wounds as well. Sorry, so actually, you are going to get like 6 wounds off. So, and then if they fail 3 saves, they're dead. So that you can come down and kill a chapter master turn 1 with this.
Yeah, you've just got to be, I guess, if you're deep striking them somehow, like drop outside of 9, but you've got to be within 18 inches, so invisible. So I think that is all doable. So that one's good. I like that one. Next one's Castigation, warp charge value of 6. If manifested, select 1 enemy unit within 18 inches and visible of a Psyker and roll 3d6. If the total exceeds the lowest leadership characteristic in that unit, the unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. I bloody love that one. It's great.
You don't just love it, you bloody love it.
I do. It's like a smite. I mean, it's like a better version of smite because it doesn't have to target the nearest units. You can target characters with it. Within 18 inches and visible is all it says.
But no, because if manifest is like 1 enemy unit within 18 and visible. Oh no, yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, you could probably do that.
Yeah, you've just got to beat the leadership characteristic of the lowest thing in that unit.
Yeah.
So that is actually really good against just general units because obviously it doesn't go off on like the sergeant's leadership. It goes against off the base unit. So Astra Militarum, that's a 6. That'll be easy to do. Yeah. And obviously you can combo this with smite as well. So you could do quite easily. I mean, warp charge value for 6. Statistically, you should pull that off. Smite goes off on a 5, right? Doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that's 2d3 mortal wounds right there on 1 unit with your Psyker.
Not bad.
If you've got a Psyker that can do 2 psychic powers, the generic one though, because that's obviously who. You could do this with anyone, so it doesn't have to be the regular Psyker. The regular Psyker can only do 1 though. Yeah. Is there no warlord trait to?
You can give it the warlord traits to increase its.
To give you 1 extra power. So that actually could be quite good if you want to kind of customize it, like I said, to do a particular ordo, like Minoris.
Well, the problem is you can't do that as Order Minoris, so that has to be Order
No, you can. These are the generic ones that can be on any ordo.
Oh, yeah, but I'm saying that if you wanted to get an extra spell, you have to be Order Malleus.
Oh, right, yes, okay. And then there's 3 ordo-specific ones.
Yep.
So Ordo Ascertainment, so warp charge value of 6. If manifested,
which is part of the Ordo Hereticus you forgot.
Oh yes, sorry, Ordo Hereticus.
Ascertainment.
Select 1 enemy unit within 12 inches of this Psyker until the start of your next psychic phase. Subtract 1 from the attack characteristics of the models in that unit to a minimum of 1. Roll 2d6 if the total is equal to or greater than the highest leadership characteristic in that unit. Then, until the start of your next psychic phase, when resolving an attack made by a model in that unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. So you reduce... it's their attack characteristic, so their close combat attack characteristic, not from their shooting. And you can also give them -1 to hits if you can beat their leadership on 2d6, which on 2d6 rather than 3d6 is actually going to be hard to pull off.
Yep.
But that is a huge buff if you could get it.
It's all right. I think it's not. It's all right.
If it was -1 to, if it was -1, like dice roll, regardless of whether it was close combat or shooting, then it'd be really good. Because imagine if you've got a 2-shot, rapid fire gun, it becomes rapid fire like 0, like it becomes like 1 shot rather than 2 shots. That would make that so much more useful. This is only good if you basically know you're going to get charged, or you want to charge them maybe. Yeah, seems a bit niche.
It's all right, but again, here's the thing. What I'm kind of taking away from this index is that you're not going to probably have Order Hereticus unless, of course, you're using Greyfax. And then if you're going to be using Greyfax, you're not going to be using this. You're going to be using Terrify and, well, she only has 1 psychic power, so you're going to be using Terrify. Or you're going to be using Psychic Pursuit, because obviously that's also quite good. It's
I think Psychic Pursuit's good. Castigation's good if you want to like spam mortal wounds. Yeah, so next one's Psychic Veil.
And who gets that?
This is Ordo Xenos, so Eisenhorn can take it, for example. Has a warp charge value of 5. If manifested until the start of your next psychic phase, friendly Ordo Xenos units within 6 inches of this player can only be selected as the target of attacks if they are the closest visible enemy unit, and can only be selected as the target of charges as if they're within 6 inches of the charging unit. So this will automatically stop deep striking units charging you, which I love, and combos quite well. I was actually going to say with one of the Inquisitors, but he's not Ordo Xenos, so that throws that one out of the window. Because Cotiez has got that, obviously, when a unit comes down, you can shoot at them. But this is really good for just creating some screens, for example. So you can't be charged, which I quite like. Yeah.
It's all right. I mean, it's good, I think, but not, again, very situational.
Well, yeah, I mean, also, if you're going to do a big squad of acolytes, this can keep them alive longer, because it effectively means they can't be targeted. So if you've got a screen in front of them, you can keep that squad of, 6 plasma guys or storm bolters maybe, because actually that gives you some better range. Because if you're coming down, for example, with if you're going to drop pod them in, or you're going to use a Valkyrie, or however you're going to get them up the board to do like a suicidal attack, then this is pointless because they're going to be the closest to things. But if you're going to try and sit them back at slightly longer range, which you could do with storm bolters, then you're going to get a lot of shots off every turn, and they can't be targeted. And they also will still screen characters as well, so it does require there to be unit in front, I guess. That's the only problem.
I mean, again, it's all right. It's situational, but it's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, I just like the fact that you can sort of, if you could potentially trap your opponent, like bait them into trying to deep strike your army in a particular place. So maybe you have these guys right next to your tanks, which is super vulnerable. But then you cast this off, immediately you've got to get it on a 5, so it is doable, but risky if it doesn't. But it means they definitely can't charge you.
Yeah.
Because even if you get +1s or rerolls, it doesn't help, you just physically can't charge them.
No, I mean, like I say, it's good to an extent, but
yeah,
again, not...
niche, but I quite like it.
Again, what I'm saying, my thing is with it, I don't immediately think, wow, it's fine, but it's the problem always is with this stuff. Once you start getting into the real circumstantial, situational situations, it just gets too obscure for the usefulness. But I mean, it's not terrible. And then on to the last one, Ordo Malleus, power through knowledge. Yep.
A warp charge value of 6. If manifested, select 1 friendly Imperium infantry or Imperium biker unit within 12 inches of this psyker. Until the start of your next psychic phase, that models in that unit have a 5+ invulnerable save.
I think that's great. I think going back to what I was saying before, psychic fortitude and power through knowledge, because this is an Ordo Malleus spell. So if I was doing this, I would be taking the Ordo Malleus Warlord trait to give my Inquisitor 2 psychic powers, and I would be using those in conjunction with each other on the big unit of conscripts. So you would have a unit with 5 of invulnerable saves that doesn't run away. Yay! That's fun, isn't it? So I think that would be pretty incredible, actually, as a combination for the current state of the, people playing Chapter Approved 2018 side of things. I don't think you would, and in that instance as well, Phil, I think that is where you would probably argue that the Black Shroud would be the relic of choice as well, because you want more survivability on that Inquisitor. So if you were looking at that as an irritating stay alive thing at the back of the board, that could be pretty cool.
Where was the ability which gives you reroll 1s to hit on an infantry unit?
That was a stratagem.
Oh, it was a stratagem. Okay, right, yeah. So I was looking under Warlord traits and saw there. So yeah, the ability to give something reroll 1s to hit plus an invulnerable save, might make a regular infantry unit or regular, non-ordo unit have a bit of punch to it, which isn't too bad. I quite like that one.
No, I think one of the things that I've actually taken away from this conversation, because I'll be honest, I only really skimmed this before, and I think what's really exciting always about these conversations is some of the creative ideas that kind of come out of it. And what I actually think is going on here is there's actually quite a lot of flexible, interesting options here. I think, as I was kind of talking about, the idea you can create something with this that could actually come down and tear the heart out of your opponent's army in the form of the Psychic Pursuit combined with some Acolytes, or you could look at options where you're just putting Inquisitors into existing Imperium armies and amplifying their usefulness. Also, you can look at some really weird, janky situational stuff, which again is pretty interesting. I think, again, as the Imperium's forces continue to grow with the upcoming edition of Adeptus Sororitas, I think this is really interesting. And I think, you could potentially pull some really tricky nonsense on some of those more generic Space Marine players who aren't necessarily, amongst more the kind of top-tier elite players. I think you'd probably find that a lot of people would be completely bamboozled by some of the stuff that you're able to pull out. I'm not saying that this will necessarily give it a massive competitive edge, and also what I am saying is in order to be competitive, you're still going to need Marine components to this, because Marines are, very, very strong. But again, I think, even from the perspective of looking at something like the old Loyal 32, as it was back in the day, the fact that you can change out a commander for an Inquisitor really again shifts the dynamic, because one of the weaknesses of the old Inquisition Loyal 30, or sorry, not the Inquisition Loyal 32, but just the Loyal 32 with Knights, which you didn't have any anti-psycho, but now you can, because you can just chuck in an Inquisitor. No, I like it a lot. I think it's the perfect blend of functionality over creativity. And I think you could, it really allows you to create some really beautiful conversion opportunities and do some fun stuff, especially with the Necromunda range. I mean, the Necromunda range has, it's blown the doors wide open in terms of what you can do with Inquisition, right?
Yeah, so they've obviously got those, but they've, on the Games Workshop website at the moment, they've got their made-to-order Inquisitor models, which are the old metal ones, but I presume they're now fine cast. Although they might be metal, because sometimes they have done in metal. Chances are it'll be fine cast. So you can get some Inquisitors, a couple of Lady Inquisitors, a male Inquisitor. The female Inquisitors are kind of the same, like very similar heads, but with different weapon options. And then you've got the old teeny tiny Demon Host models as well. I think the Weaponsmith has always been on sale, so you can always get him. But yeah, ideally you really want to convert these up. Like from one of my Acolytes, I used the Palatine Enforcers. I did like a huge conversion work on him because I really like the armor on it. But again, you obviously can't take carapace armor on these guys, even though it would look cool to have them modelled on it. Yeah, there's a lot you can do with them. And in the White Dwarf article, they give you a bunch of like example Inquisitors and Acolytes, just to give you ideas of how you can go about converting them. And it is probably the funnest part this year I've had doing, has been building up my Inquisitor warband, converting them all up, sort of spending a lot of time converting and painting. But they're like the nicest models in my collection now that I have, because I've spent that time into them. And admittedly, it's like I've spent all that time and effort for an 8-point acolyte that can get blown off the table quite quickly. The fact that he's a character now, at least if I'm taking them as solo models, gives at least them a bit more survivability and kind of a bit more narrative as well, in terms of how they should be individual operatives, so to speak. So,
but
yeah,
you look at the Necromunda range and think about the opportunities that are available to you there. I mean, you know, the amount of hired gun type models there are, or the even that House Cawdor Executioner guy. Like the opportunities for using him as an Inquisitor, for example. I mean, okay, fair enough. You'd probably want to get rid of his massive Executioner's axe, but you would very easily be able to sort of convert him up to represent really interesting, unique looking characters and stuff. So
there's a really cool hired gun guy who's got the kind of old style sort of judge's wig on.
The bounty hunter guy.
Yeah, he's a bounty hunter. Yeah, he would be perfect as an Inquisitor pretty much out the bat. I mean, you might want to model him with some weapons or something, I don't know. But yeah, I think there's so much choice in that range.
Even looking at like the Rogue Trader stuff that they've done in plastic, right? Like the Rogue Trader stuff that came in the Rogue Trader Kill Team box, but then also what you get from Blackstone Fortress, and what you can also get from that other Blackstone Fortress expansion they've done recently. So there's lots of flexibility there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And I think GW are continuing through their Forge World range, through their Specialist Games range, and through their ongoing releases of all sorts of fun, interesting things, allowing us the opportunity to really kind of express the creative options. And again, I mean, if you were looking for a kind of looky-likey, but ultimately, better version of, say, the old gunsmith character, the old monkey character, there's the squat ammo jack character from Necromunda, who would probably do just as good a job.
Quite a suitable, like kind of proxy almost.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think people would be pretty happy with that. Again, just looking at the Necromunda range that they've got here. But look, I mean, we've definitely talked about this for a healthy amount of time. But before we say goodbye, Phil, what's your perspective on the Inquisition? You happy?
I mean, I sort of wish Dominate was a bit better than what it was. That's because that was one of the powers that I used on a regular basis, and even though it was such a sort of niche thing to pull off, it was always fun to do against like a knight. Now it's just so hard to do, it's a bit useless. I like what they've done with the Acolytes, giving them character rules along with all the Demon Host character rules. The fact that they've mostly gone down in points for the named Inquisitors is good, I think, as well. I think they are... You might see some utility in them. I can't see them... They're not going to be competitive to the point where everyone's going to be taking an Inquisitor. I mean, you might see them because of the ability to just take one, and it doesn't count towards... doesn't take up a slot in your detachment. Means you could just bolt one in. It doesn't cost any CPs like the assassin would. I think you could see some nice combos with it, but I don't think there'd be anything game breaking. I don't think, maybe your idea with the plasmas perhaps, but I think that pretty much existed as it was in the old rules, so if people were going to spam them, they would. And I think they did when the Acolytes were 4 wounds, but now they're 1 wound each. They're unlikely to do it, I don't think.
No, that's fair enough, mate. I mean, again, it's far from a perfect solution, but it's But it's an option, isn't it? And I think,
well, the fact is, you don't even need to necessarily deep strike them down, because you can have them in your lines. You've still got your 24-inch range on them, I guess. Obviously, you wouldn't get your rapid fire on them, but you can give them the psychic power so they can't be targeted.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could also combo that with the ability to shoot at characters, because I think you might have to be different autos for that one. But yeah, if you could somehow get some combos off, you can do some good things with them for sure. The generic auto for killing characters might be your best bet with them. Yeah.
Could you use the termite assault drill with them?
I guess so.
Probably. I think the termite assault drill has transport capacity specifically for regular old Space Marines, so should be theoretically doable. And I think,
I thought so.
It's a dedicated transport choice as well, isn't it? 130 points. I'm just looking at the rules for it right here. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is really good rules as well. So
yeah, maybe that's what you want to go for. Go for a termite
one of those
assault
bad
drill.
boys up.
Mate, I tell you, I mean, I'm just reading it now. Heavy flamers, melter cutter, storm bolter, twin volkite charger. Crikey.
Well, you take it for its ability to sort of do the stacking of the mortal wounds on when you charge the unit, because that's really good. I think there's lots of sort of fun, flavoursome things you can do with the Inquisition. I'd love it if they released a range of new models at some point. That'd be really cool. Like I said, if they could expand it out so you could take the Archo-Flagellants and Astropaths and Crusaders just by default with these guys, or maybe like the penitent Sororitas ladies with the chainswords, they'd be pretty good. Or Death Cult Assassins is the other classic Inquisition unit that they used to be able to take. So if you could take those with them just as part of a detachment, that would give them so much more flavour and character. That would be great. But I can see why they haven't for now.
I have a question, actually, Phil, and I don't know what the interpretation is on this. Because of the way their rule works with regards to being able to take any vehicle, does that mean you can take any transport vehicle within their detachment, or is it simply they
No, it's just that they can go on board any transport, because I think I mentioned it ages ago. Like my dream idea for Inquisition is you can take an Inquisition detachment, and within that detachment you could just take any Imperium vehicle. Would be really good. Or even if it's just one, and that one has to have a transport capability. Like for example, if I want to take like an Orion dropship, like holy hell, that'd be cool, and give me some really cool conversion abilities to make my own kind of slightly like gun cutter that's better than a Vendetta or Valkyrie. If you could take one, that'd make it so much more fun to take an Inquisitional detachment. But unfortunately, no. It's just that they can just go on board any vehicle, Imperium vehicle.
Well, there we go. Well, thank you everyone for listening to us prattle on about the lovely world of Inquisition. We hope you enjoyed our thoughts and feelings on the topic. We'll move on now to whatever it is that comes next. Thank you very much. Woo! Thank you everyone for checking out episode 34. That was it. It's done. If you made it this far, obviously thank you very much for getting here. We've really appreciated and also enjoyed your support all the way through the process of making these shows. And that is no less the case right now. So much so, Phil's going to say some heartwarming things to you. Phil, what do you reckon about all this nonsense?
Well, thanks very much for making it this far. We appreciate your love and support. I'm not entirely convinced anyone does get this far. So if you do, hit us up on the old Instagrams or the Facebooks or the YouTube comments and let us know that you are a hero of the Lookout Sir community. You're one of the boys. You're one of us. You've made it here. And then drop us a like, hit that subscribe button, and then you can go off to your day knowing you've been a jolly good boy or girl. And well done you. And then go and enjoy the rest of your Saturday, or probably it'll be Thursday next week by the time you finish this this part of the podcast. So yeah, well done, you guys.
Well done. Joe, do you want to try and do a better promo than what Phil just did?
No, Phil could be a car salesman with that kind of spiel.
I think that's the nicest thing you've ever said about Phil.
I'm always nice about Phil.
No, I know you are. I'm just trying to, sow the seeds of doubt and internal, bickering.
Just going to reduce the amount of time that I'm allowed to talk and rant on the podcast before we start jumping in and kicking me out.
That's true.
No, I know. You're already using up your 5-minute allocation, so get on with it.
Come on, Joe. Let's hear your version of thanks very much for listening.
Thanks very much for listening. You're all beautiful people. Like and subscribe. Email us and write us letters of love and adoration. And send us cake.
I'm worried that these sort of thanks for making it this far statements all had to have some kind of, but that's not nearly enough. Could you also, come around and say nice things to us to prop up our egos and, help our numbers grow and make us feel
I didn't
validated?
say anything like that at all.
We could say that, that if it wasn't for the fans, we wouldn't be here. Without them, we'd be nothing. We'd be less than people. But we just do it anyway. And we just put it out to dead air.
That's what we've been doing all along. That's been the fun. That's literally... I just, there's something terribly wrong with the algorithms that are being fed. I actually look at these numbers and I think, we've got this many listeners, when in reality we have none. None whatsoever. Other than each other. This is some sort of mad purgatory existence that we live.
Yeah, we're just three guys. Three lonely guys.
Mini Wargaming, they started talking about how everything's getting a little bit tight on the old purse strings. And, I don't know, there's a certain cynicism I feel whenever you see those sorts of videos. I mean, did any of you guys see the Mini Wargaming talking about how broke they are?
It's down to their internet providers. So their internet providers turn around and charge them but they've increased their yearly rate by it's like 1,600%. So what they would pay in a year previously now only pays for 3 weeks of their service.
Wow.
And by the sounds of it, instead of changing their provider, they're just going to continue to pay it, but they're asking for more money from the fans.
That seems a madness. Surely they'd be better off. I mean, maybe they can't, but surely they would be better off changing provider or using. I guess their whole kind of monetized system is around their website and the vault. And if that requires that website, then I guess they would have to do it that way. I mean, they could potentially shift everything over to something like Patreon, where it's on their servers, so they don't have to worry about bandwidth costs and stuff like that. But then that means changing their whole kind of business model.
Because the problem is that, like he says in the video, is that their whole system and their whole business relies upon the monthly subscription. But the problem is there's so many subscription services out there that people really need to be picky about what they spend their money on and what they do. And it's not like Netflix where one person pays for 8 people to watch it. So they're really struggling on that. And the problem is that over the years, their quality has remained the same. It's dipped in some areas. Like I used to watch it all the time. And then I moved on to newer people because what they were putting out, which was, in my opinion, objectively better. So I stopped paying money to them and then started to consume free content from other people, which I actually preferred. And I think that's just generally happened to them. Just like people have gone, there's more free stuff over here.
Well, in a way, we're contributing to the problem in our own little way, right? But at the same time, it's the nature of the beast. I mean, I think, ultimately, you can find yourself in these awkward situations in business where, what you're offering isn't currently in line with, current market expectations, and you can either adapt and change your business model, or you can go out of business. And look, I'm not advocating that that's what will happen or what should happen to the guys at Mini Wargaming. If anything, I wanted to kind of talk about this to sort of highlight the fact that they're in this situation, and I will put a link in the description below and encourage you to check them out. As Joe has kind of attested, I think that their content has always had a good kind of consistent quality to it, but at the same time, it's not been something I've overly watched personally. But I'm a big fan of making sure that, people are aware of these things and that we do our part for whatever, part that represents, and highlight when someone in the community is struggling, because I think ultimately it's really important that we continue to have really great content creators in the Warhammer 40,000 or tabletop wargaming space. And, for a longer time, these guys have been the main flag bearers of that mantra and of that discipline.
They were the first, right, essentially. They were the first people to do mass-produced daily videos of Warhammer and fantasy, and they were the launch pad for so many other channels and the inspiration. Everyone's like, I want to be them. But the bad thing about the industry that it's become is that these people have gone on and killed their creator in a way.
But I mean, that happens a lot, though, man. I mean, they've had a very, very long run of it, and I think, look, they're not gonna be shutting up shop tomorrow, are they? And credit where credit's due to Mini Wargaming, they've created a really compelling, very good kind of entry-level opportunity for their Vault system. So they're giving free entrance to the Vault for now, so you can sign up to their Vault, and you'll get free access to it for 7 days, I believe. And then they're also going to have free content on there, even if you don't become a subscriber after the fact. So they're going to have shows available on the Vault free of charge all the time, because their logic is that when you use the thing, you'll develop an affinity for it and understand how it works. And once you've got some familiarity with it, you'll ultimately, feel more willing to pay for it, which I think is a perfectly reasonable conclusion. The broad consensus, based on various variables, would be that the smart thing would be to try and change your provider, or actually go somewhere where more people are, or make your service easier to interact with, because at the end of the day, I think the biggest problem that Mini Wargaming has is discoverability. I think at the end of the day, you find them and you watch their free stuff and they go, hey, I've got a premium thing, and then you think, oh, I've got to go to this, put the details in, all this stuff. People are inherently lazy, but if they had some way of creating premium content that was on a platform that people were already on, then maybe that would probably work in their best interest. But I mean, I'm just a man spouting nonsense at this moment in time. The point is, check out those guys, and if you like what they do, by all means, if you feel it's necessary, why not think about supporting them? But if you don't want to, don't do that either. I'm not here to tell you what to do. But Joe might be. I mean, you're the sort of forceful fella who will demand things of people, right, Joe?
Yeah. Give them money. Save them. Feed their children.
Exactly. It's your fault that they're going out of business. Help them.
Yeah. All you internet people providing free stuff. Just killing the hard-working man. You yourselves are obviously hard-working. I'm not going to take that away from you.
Well, of course.
They're providing free content for people who often complain that it's either not good or you're not working hard enough for free. So they're the real problem. So you bums, give them some money.
Yeah, exactly.
And give those people who provide free content, give them some money too.
You mean like us?
Yeah, give us some cash.
Brilliant.
I do accept bonds, monopoly money, food tokens. There's that. It's like Patreon. I think it's called coffee. You can buy people coffee now, which is a little weird thing.
What about travelers' checks? You take those?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Gold being gems, jewelry.
All right, I'm gonna have to stop you here. This is gonna go on way too long. I'm gonna step in before Phil does. But look, there you go, guys. That was episode 34. Genuinely, thank you. It's always a pleasure. We appreciate every one of you listening to this bit, but we also appreciate all of those who probably aren't listening to this bit but made it some way through the content. Definitely not our best episode. I think if I was to probably rate this one, I'd probably give it a solid 4 out of 10 for me. We were a bit unprepared and a bit all over the place. Although the Inquisition stuff was quite good. Basically, the bits where Joe wasn't here were better. Wouldn't you say so, Phil?
For sure. I mean, there was a distinct lack of going off topic on that segment.
That's true.
I think that the only difference was Joe, so it must have been his fault.
It's true. Although you said it was a lack of going off topic, we did still manage to talk about it for 2 hours.
Yeah. It's because it was super in-depth.
2 hours?
I know.
We literally went through everything.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That'll be nice for you to listen to at work, Joe. You see, a nice treat for you.
I don't listen. I don't listen to. I can't at my job because they listen to the hippity raps kind of music.
Oh,
the radio. I can go near. I'll save it for when I'm painting. Instead. I kind of feel like this ending we're doing is kind of like the end of the last Lord of the Rings film.
Yeah.
You know when they basically saved the world.
Yeah.
And you went back happy. And the screen went black, and you're like, oh, I'm getting my chair now. And then you had to listen to half an hour of crying. And it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
But we're not crying, because we were just talking about just stuff.
Exactly.
But,
yeah. It could be similar in many ways to crying.
Our talking is our crying.
Exactly.
Right. So on that note, should we just say goodbye rather than painfully eke this out?
I just thought you were going to say goodbye, Phil. Go on, do the honours.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Check out Grim Resolve as well. They're quite good. And,
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.